TitleMatchNetwork.com.
It's a pleasure to be joined by the Lethal Weapon, Steve Blackman. Steve, welcome to the shoot interview.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Good to have you. First question we ask everybody is, how'd you get started in the business?
Well, years ago, like in '85, I was living down in Florida, just tired of my lifestyle, tired of working in bars. Just kind of realized it was going nowhere fast. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and I'm like, I don't know, it just hit me one day. I decided to go to wrestling school. So hitting around to some of my friends, I said, I think I'm just going to go to wrestling school. And I'm sick of this. Just 4 years of working in this bar scene, 50 hours a week isn't cutting it anymore.
Yeah.
So he goes, well, there's a wrestling school in Connecticut near my parents' house. I said, yeah, sure there is. I just thought the guy was busting my balls.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm telling you, there's a wrestling school down the street. Well, and long story short, I flew up to Connecticut the next week, and that was in Milford, and that's where Tony Altimore had a school, and Dave Schultz. And I ended up going to the school that Tony Altimore was running. That's where Taylor Seedy was in there when I went there.
Oh, okay.
And some of the other guys. We had a pretty good crew at the time. Anyway, that's where I got started.
Oh, wow. Were you a fan before you got into the business?
Somewhat. I mean, I was when I was younger. At those years when I was in my later teens, like 19 and then 20, 21, and stuff like that,
yeah.
I wasn't as big a fan. I was just busy working and doing other things. But in my younger years, as a kid, I watched it more on TV.
Yeah. Was the training more difficult than you thought it would be?
I don't know. I mean, I expected it to be difficult. I don't know exactly what I expected, but it was difficult. I mean, we bumped our butts off for months. Just we trained about 3 hours a day. I mean, I flew up there for one reason, to go to wrestling school. So
yeah.
I sound like I took days off, 6 days a week. I was in that ring 3 hours a day. That's all I did.
So you relocated specifically to go to the school?
Yep.
Wow.
I actually flew up there, bought a cheap car, because I had two cars in Florida.
Yeah.
Bought a cheap car to go back and forth to the gym with, and when I got a chance or a break, I'd fly back to Florida to see my girlfriend and stuff like that. But I just flew up there for that reason. All I did was lift and wrestle.
Wow. What is your martial arts background?
Well, in high school, I did Ishinru between baseball and football. Junior high, I wrestled and played baseball, football. High school, I took karate between baseball and football. And then when I got down to Florida, I took Kenpo. I boxed at college. And then after that, in the early 90s, I started doing the jiu-jitsu.
Oh, wow.
When I finished up with WWF, I did more jiu-jitsu. And just over all the years, kind of threw it all together. And now I have my own MMA school in Harrisburg.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have a lot of guys that fight.
Wow. Now, you also had an extensive background in weightlifting before you got into wrestling. If you could talk about that.
I was always into working out, probably obsessed with it when I was younger. Fortunately, I grew out of that. But I just always trained. Always played sports from age 8 to college: baseball, football, wrestle, basketball, boxing, whatever. And I don't know, my brothers were always working out. They're all in shape. We just always trained hard like that.
Yeah.
I used to enter a lot of benching competitions, curling competitions, stuff like that.
Yeah. Did you find that you had good genetics, that it came to you quick, naturally, or?
I did. I feel I did have good genetics. My family has good genetics. My brothers are built similar, but I mean, nevertheless, I still attribute most of it to the work ethic. I mean, we train our butts off.
Yeah. Was it tempting at that time to do steroids, especially back in the 80s?
Back in the 80s, it was. When I got into lifting and moved away, I was always opposed to doing steroids. Always. I can't stand putting anything in my body. I can't stand having my mind altered or anything. Like, I still don't even drink.
Wow.
I just don't. I can't stand having anything alter my thoughts. So, but back to the question about the steroids. Back in the 80s, I tried them a little bit. Then I stopped. Tried them a little bit again. Stopped. I did them probably off and on. I don't know exactly. So don't hold me to it. Half a dozen times.
Yeah.
Like, do them for 8 weeks, stop for 8. And then I went to my doctor, and I'm like, I just not gaining much. Well, I was like really leery about taking many. So point being, I was taking like probably just a little more than my body was producing naturally. So it's kind of one of those things that was a waste of time.
Yeah.
Some of the guys just take loads of them. Anyway, in '89, I had a separated shoulder. So I got some cortisone for it, and I had an allergic reaction to it. And I was just red as a beet for 3 days, couldn't breathe right, just felt like I was on fire, couldn't sleep. A few weeks later, the doctor gave me a smaller dose of cortisone because my shoulder was just so ripped up. Same thing happened.
Wow.
So about a month later, again, don't hold me exactly to that, give or take a couple weeks. But then we tried a regular steroid, and the same thing happened to me. So I had 3 reactions to cortisone and steroid, and that was in '89, and I have never done anything since then. No growth hormone, no steroid, no nothing.
Wow.
I just forced myself to train my butt off and eat right. So I never took anything, not even protein drinks and stuff when I was wrestling.
Wow.
Just ate like crazy and trained all the time.
When's the last time you had a piece of chocolate cake?
Oh, I mean, there's like if I eat, say, you eat 5 times a day. If I eat 35 meals in a week, I can say 2 or 3 of them, I can bang up a bag of cookies pretty good.
Oh, okay. What are your memories of your first match?
My memories of my first match. I remember my first match.
Wow.
A guy that had gone through the wrestling school, his name was John. I don't even remember John's last name, but he used the gimmick, the Jersey Devil. He was my first wrestling match. And we went like 15, 20 minutes. I mean, it was all right.
Yeah.
What's funny is somewhere at home in one of the boxes in the attic, I have a match with Ted Arcidi. It was like my 5th match out of wrestling school and his like 7th.
Wow.
You should take a look at that barn burner. But we went like 15 minutes. I don't know how Ted kept his wind up like that. I had a pretty good wind.
Yeah.
I thought he'd gas out. We were running ragged out there, but it was funny. But I'd like to dig that one out because I'm sure a lot of the boys would like to see that classic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. With your martial arts background and being that you were so physical as an athlete growing up, did you have any problems early on, maybe accidentally stiffing guys just because you're just so used to going full throttle?
Once I learned the whole concept around the TV wrestling, I was okay working it a bit, but it was just hard to comprehend in my head, not to lay them in harder.
Yeah.
Now, some of the things we do lay in, but, some of the things are designed for TV, so you're kind of watching what you're doing. So some of that was difficult. And like one thing that became difficult for me, it was just really hard as I was in the business to do an interview and make it look like a shoot when I'm supposed to be mad at somebody standing 5 feet from me, because if I was that mad at you and you were that close to me, we're just going to go.
Yeah.
I don't argue with people. I don't want to yell at people. I'm just going to I've had it. Here we go.
Yeah.
And, so that was difficult. I think that was difficult for Ken too, microphone wise. I just never seemed to put that through my head to just be able to scream at somebody standing 5 feet from me. If I was that mad at you, I'm just going to hit you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But, probably cut off my nose and spread my face. I didn't get better at that. And as far as the business goes, because if you get that niche on the mic, you got it made.
What was Tony Altamore like?
Tony was all right. He was a good guy. He was business. He put a lot of us through the wrestling school, but then he put on his own shows. So it's not like he made a bundle coming up for, through the ranks with him. He wasn't paying anybody a bunch of money. And we actually back then had some decent crowds. I mean, I remember, for small independent shows, I remember one show in '86 we did. I wrestled Tony Atlas. And then there were some other guys, and we had like over 3,000 people at that show.
Wow.
Now, back then for a little independent, that was kicking.
Yeah.
So he made some good money. Now, he gave me some decent paydays for some of those, because a lot of times after I was in there for about 5 or 6 months, I'd run the wrestling school a lot for him, teaching the guys bump and moves and all that stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I wish we'd have focused on a little more was the psychology aspect. We all knew the moves and could all do the moves, but, learning how to work the match properly is a little more involved.
Yeah.
And they didn't really focus much on that. It was like they put 2 guys in there and have them wrestle and go, okay, just watch and learn. Well, if you can explain how to run things, it just clicks a little bit better in your mind than just sitting there watching 2 guys that aren't that good at it themselves doing it.
Do you remember any veterans early on in your career kind of taking you aside after a match or maybe before a match and, helping you out psychology-wise?
Yep. Tony Gree and Johnny Rods.
Okay.
Johnny Rods did a lot of those independents with us, and so was Tony Gree. I remember the first 10 matches I was doing in those independents, Johnny Rods was always on them too. And he would come over and try to correct them. Now I look back, I know what he meant, because my psychology was the shits back then.
Yeah.
When you're first out of wrestling school, if you're running a 15-minute match, you might get lucky and have 3 or 4 minutes of it go the way it's supposed to, and the other 11 minutes, it just isn't clicking the way it's supposed to. So he used to correct some of the stuff I was doing on those.
Sure.
And like I said, after about a year out of wrestling school, then I started sinking into my head. Okay, now I know what he meant by this and still on like that.
Oh, interesting. And how did you wind up getting into Stampede?
I went to Japan in '87.
Probably for who? Do you
New
remember?
Japan.
Okay.
I was probably way too green when I went over there. I kind of bullshitted my way over, and probably hurt me more than helped me at the time because I really didn't have many matches out of wrestling school. Anyway, I went over there and it ended up being a 6.5 week tour. Well, I was there with Owen, Vader, Bob Orton. There were a bunch of Steve Williams.
Wow.
There were a lot of good guys on the trip. Now that was 21 years ago.
Yeah.
And Owen was up there, and he was trying to explain some psychology to me off and on different nights too. And I said, "What do you think I should do?" He goes, "I think you should go to Stampede and wrestle for my dad's league. They wrestle every day of the year." He goes, "That's where you learn." So when I got back to the States from Japan, I stayed in contact with him. He talked to his dad. And I flew up there. Well, then after that, that's where you learn to work. When you wrestle 20 minutes a night, sometimes twice a night for a year, every single day, and there's guys up there that could work. Yeah, that's where you learn.
Wow. Can you tell a story about bullshitting your way into New Japan?
Well, I would just say kind of embellished a bit of my resume and things like that. I mean, back then I probably weighed 270, 275, just bigger. Once I turned 19, my lowest body weight was usually around 265.
Wow. Just
eating and lifting. If I actually just trained heavier and ate a lot more, I was like 275 and 280.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my size at that time helped me, get over there. And I mean, I could move pretty well with the moves and things like that, but my psychology was just pretty much non-existent from having 20 matches or something out of wrestling school, 30 matches, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what hurt me over there. But that's it for that.
Yeah. What are your memories of Stu?
Well, I mean, there was no BS in Stu. I mean, he was just a direct forward guy, which I like because I'm direct. If you like what I'm doing, tell me, that's fine. If you don't like it, you're not going to offend me one way or another. Just tell me exactly what you want, and we'll go from there. But, Stu used to just try to, he used to run that, business up there. His kids pretty much ran it, and he oversaw it. Yeah. Stu just seemed like he was a hardcore guy at 75 years old.
Wow.
So, I mean, I just never saw any, softness in that guy. He just seemed hard the whole time.
Did he take you into the dungeon?
I mean, I've been in there. Now, Benoit and Pillman, those guys spent a little more time down there than I did. But I've been to Stu's house many times, and I've been in the basement.
Yeah.
But some of the other younger guys, he used to stretch down there.
Yeah. Did he try and stretch you early on just to test you a bit, or no? Any good Stu stories? I mean, all the guys have a good Stu Hart story that's out there.
I spent a long time on the road in Calgary. I could tell you a story for every day of the road. Every day that we were up there. Because when I was up there, 6 months of the time I was up there, the Bulldog and Dynamite were back in Stampede because they took some time off from fighting. Okay. They were up there. Brian Pillman was up there. Biff Wellington, Chris Benoit, DeSalvo, Norman the Lunatic, Mike Shaw. And we had a pretty good crew up there.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of crazy guys. There were a lot of crazy stories. But I know that one time we had a guy on the crew that just seemed to be, every time we did something on the road, it seemed to get back to Stu.
Yeah.
Well, Benoit could talk exactly like Owen's dad. I mean, just like, hey, that goddamn kid. I mean, he could just imitate him to a T. So we'd have him call these guys' rooms and imitate Stu's voice to find out if they were snitching. When we found out who the snitch was, well, then we did so much stuff to the guy, we drove him nuts. Well, when we got home, Stu went nuts. He found out what had happened and stuff, and he came in yelling, and you couldn't help but laugh because all you're picturing is the voice Benoit just did. Now Stu's yelling that same voice about this thing. And, one of the promoters up there, every time we'd wrestle in Stampede, and this used to drive me nuts, we would start in the closest city on a Sunday or Monday and then get further and further away through the week. Well, Friday, we'd have to be back in Calgary for TV. So these morons would have us 10, 12 hours away. Well, you're done with the show at 10 o'clock at night. You're getting home at 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning, and they want you at TV at noon. For months, I told this guy, who's a crack addict running this? Start us in the furthest town and bring us back.
Exactly.
I said, what are you guys missing here? Well, he thought it was a joke until, every time we were away, some of the guys would just kick out his headlights. They'd slice his tires. They'd break his wiper blades off, kick out his windshield, whatever.
Yeah.
We used to get home, and he always called Bulldog to leave these messages on his machine because he didn't know who else to bitch at,
Yeah.
And every time we get home, Dave would play those things. We'd listen to him and hear Stu, what's going on? God damn it. Dave kicked out his headlights. It was great. He'd go nuts, but it was always Stu yelling about something, from the guys acting up on the road or guys got in a fight in a bar. And we got kicked out of about 30 hotels in Canada because the guys were always doing stupid stuff.
Wow.
I've seen guys punching holes through walls down the hallway so they could pass beers through the wall instead of walking down the hall. I've seen guys crap in the swimming pool in the hotel and they had to kick, make people leave. I have seen it all up there.
Yeah.
And every time you get home, Stu would be bitching up a storm. So it was entertaining.
Wow. Were you there? We've heard the story a couple of times. One time some guys came into a bathroom or something to attack Pillman. There was something like 5 guys or something. He wound up taking them all out.
Well, there were different. I don't know about that exact story. Just out of curiosity, where did you get that information?
Kim Woods. Do you know Kim?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if it was the bathroom. I recall some of the ones we were up there. I know one time we were walking into a place and a bunch of hockey players were passing by. And I was the last one coming in the door, and I saw Wellington, Benoit, and Pillman. And I saw guys getting tackled up there by the hockey team, and I came flying up and started dropping guys with them.
Wow.
But that was one of those I remember. I know there was another night where Pillman was these people kept irritating my son. He just picked up a chair and laced a couple people.
Oh, wow.
But the one in the bathroom, I don't know.
Okay. Was Owen a ribber even in Stampede?
Owen's the biggest ribber I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
His picture should be in the dictionary next to the word rib because there's nobody like him.
Yeah. What was your favorite Owen rib? Whether it's there, it's Titan.
Well, all right. I can go on and on with Owen. One time when we were in Japan, I could go on. I'm just thinking way back.
Yeah.
We were in Japan, and I think we were on the 8th or 9th floor, and Owen, screwing around, brought the fire extinguisher over, and he was trying to shoot it underneath my door just to mess with me.
Yeah.
The handle got stuck, and the thing just kept emptying its entire contents. Well, I heard Owen yelling out in the hall. I opened my door, and it's one of those extinguishers that's sucking the oxygen out of the air.
Uh-huh.
So the faster this thing spews, the less you can breathe. And it's filling the entire hallway with this white mist, and now I can't breathe. Owen goes running back to his room. I close the door to my room, and it's taking my breath now.
Sure.
So I open my window and stick my head out. And just as I stick my head out, I look down, and as far as you can see, every room has a head sticking out the window. Every Japanese person in that hotel was gasping for air on that floor. Now, it's pretty sick because, you can't breathe, but I was dying.
Yeah.
And then I put a towel over my face, went to the door, opened the door, and the extinguisher shut off finally because the entire thing emptied. And I saw Owen's footprints going to his room. So I call him. I go, Owen, your footprints are going right to your own door. Well, he comes flying out in the hall with his face covered, grabs a towel, and he's waving the towel like this, trying to cover his footprints. As soon as he got in and closed his door and I closed mine, you could see the lights on the elevator coming up. You knew it was all the security.
Yeah.
Well, they blamed me for a while, then they blamed this other guy for a while, and then they didn't want to blame Owen. I'd been going over there for a couple of years. They didn't think it was him.
Yeah.
Although he wasn't doing it to people in the hotel. He was trying just to rib me, and it ended up ribbing everybody on the whole floor.
Yeah.
But that was a classic because you couldn't breathe up there for a while.
Wow.
That was just one of them.
Yeah. Were you in Stampede when Bad News was there?
I know Bad News, but the 14 months or whatever it was that I was wrestling up there, he wasn't on the shows when he was either before or I think he was a little before.
Oh, okay. Did anybody up there mentor you at all? Because you had a mix up there of veterans and young guys.
I didn't say they mentored me, but I had questions for like Dynamite and Benoit on more of the psychology.
Yeah.
And then after I was up there for about 3 months, the psychology clicked in my head, and then I could just go. I got to the point where 20-minute matches were pretty easy to keep the people into them because my psychology was really good.
Yeah.
And then after 9 months, I felt like my psychology was great. I used to just, work on it constantly, writing down things, stuff like that. And then after I left Stampede, I actually was supposed to go down to Titan, and I had a 2 or 3 week gig scheduled in South Africa. And I kept my word to a guy over there, Gamma Singh, to go down there and wrestle, main event with, against him. That's where I got sick. Well, it cost me, 3 years of my life on my deathbed, 2 years of medicine getting better, and all to keep my word to a guy. So instead of going to Titan back then, what's frustrating for me at that point was my psychology was I don't mean to blow smoke up my nose, but my psychology was great when I left Calgary. And then when I was out of the business for 5.5 or 6 years from being ill, my psychology slipped. So when I started back in Titan later on, it took me a couple months just to get back into the swing of things. And then not only the psychology aspect, that started coming. I mean, I always know how to work a match.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, put me in there, just say, okay, 20 minutes. I could just go.
Yeah.
I mean, I did hour matches. We did an hour match the first match I was in Africa.
Wow.
And stuff like that. But then, then you're working on your psychology, and then you lose track of your charisma. So I didn't show much charisma and mic skills. And it really started to get to me after a while, because when I left Calgary, I felt good with everything.
Yeah.
And then after being out for 6 years, you're signed like trying to get right back into it. I had the physical skills, to always, make the matches look good. But, as far as the charisma and mic stuff goes, that was lacking.
Yeah. Lastly, in Calgary, do you have any Ed Whalen stories?
I don't have any real stories on Ed, but I thought he was a decent announcer.
Yeah. Every now and again, you'll hear a good Ed Whalen story, so I figured I would
He's
ask.
no Jim Ross, but he's a decent announcer.
Yeah. Stories I've heard is that, he wasn't clued in onto angles, so he would get real crazy if...
Well, that could be true. I can't recall Ed ever being clued in on. I mean, I worked main event matches with Bulldog for titles and this and that. So I can't remember Ed being included on anything.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably true.
As far as South Africa, you were just talking about it a little bit. What exactly happened down there?
I got down there, and the day after I was there, I started getting sick, and I just kept getting sicker. And I was so dehydrated, I couldn't even breathe.
Yeah.
Every 10 minutes, I was in the bathroom. I would chug water. I would chug sodas, juice, anything I could get my hands on, because every 10 minutes, I felt like I had sand in my mouth and just couldn't breathe. I go to the hospital. They keep me on IV all night, go through a few bags of IV. They send me back to the hotel. 6 or 8 hours later, I'd be so dehydrated, I couldn't breathe again. I'd go back. This went on the whole week.
Wow.
Well, at that point in time, they were only flying out of Durban once a week, because this was in '89.
Okay.
So if I didn't get out the Thursday coming up, I'd have been stuck there for another week. And I knew I wasn't going to make it another week. When I arrived there on that one Thursday, I weighed 267. When I got home 7 days later, I was 232.
Oh my God.
And when I got home, I had drank and eaten a lot of food the night before I went to bed and went to the doctor in the morning. So I probably had lost more than 35 pounds in 6 days or 7 days.
Wow.
And it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, Gary Albright, he passed away as well. I was in Durban. I was in the hospital. I said, Gary, you got to help me get out of here. I said, if I stay another week here, I'm not going to make it. I said, I don't want to have my family have to come halfway around the world to retrieve my body.
Yeah.
So I said, I want to get the hell out of here. So he scheduled one of his friends to pick me up. Guy drove me to the airport. I had enough cash on me to buy a ticket from Durban to Johannesburg. So now at home, I had my family buying me a ticket from Johannesburg all the way back home. I mean, this was 20 years ago, so I didn't have a bunch of cash on me. They were paying for everything, but I had enough to cover that one ticket on the spur of the moment. So I got to Johannesburg, and it's like the ticket came through about 15 minutes before the flight left. It wouldn't have come through. I'd have been stuck there and probably been dead there, because now I would have been in Johannesburg where I knew no one.
Yeah.
So luckily I got on the plane there, and I was fighting to keep from blacking out the whole time. And I would keep a bag full of sodas and water, whatever I could find, because I just couldn't even breathe. So from there, like I said, don't hold me to it. This is what I remember of it vaguely.
Yeah.
It was like a 5-hour flight to Kenya. We had a 5-hour layover in Kenya on the runway with the doors open. It was about 120 degrees.
Wow.
From there, we flew, I think, 9 hours to Amsterdam, and I had a 12-hour layover. When I got to Amsterdam, they weren't going to let me on the plane because I was so sick. And I said, look, I don't think I have anything contagious. It's dysentery, malaria, something like that, but I don't think it's contagious. I said, if I die, I'm going to die in the States. I made it this far. I'm going home. Yeah. So anyway, I was laying on the floor in the airport for 12 hours. I would just crawl in the bathroom every 10 minutes, and one end or the other would be coming out. As soon as I drink all the fountain, I'd go in again, and it was just horrible. And then from there, we flew to New York City. But on that flight from Amsterdam to New York, I blacked out a few times. And I know that they called a doctor on the plane, and he'd mix up these packs for me, like for maybe blood sugar packs or something. To keep reviving me, so to speak. And I got to New York, and I just know they had some kid wheel me off in a wheelchair. And whatever money I had in my hand, I don't have any clue to this day what it was. I just gave it to him. I said, "Go get me something to eat," because I wanted to see if I could keep some food and water down back in my own country.
Yeah.
He came back with a sub and a bottle of water, and it's the first time I even drank something where I didn't go right to the bathroom. I'm like, my God, it stayed down.
Yeah.
Now, I'm delirious. On top of losing 35 pounds in 6 days, I haven't slept now in 2 days because I've been flying and all this stuff, trying to get home for 30 some hours.
Yeah.
So now we're in New York. I have like a 5-hour layover to fly to Harrisburg. I didn't care if I passed out there. I didn't care if I went to the hospital there.
Yeah.
I didn't even pick my luggage up. I said, leave it. I said, just get me to my gate and, let me go. And I made it home. And I was pretty delirious because I remember at that time, I couldn't even remember my girlfriend's name for the first 3 or 4 days. Went to the doctor. He said probably dysentery, probably a bit of malaria because of my symptoms. I was so bad. Well, then after that, that's when my shoulder got screwed up there.
In South Africa?
Yeah, I got screwed up in Stampede, and then it got worse in South Africa. That's one of the other reasons. I mean, I mainly went there to keep my word to the guy, but I also went there because I wanted my shoulder to be better before I started with Titan. So anyway, after about 2 weeks at home, I started feeling a little better. Then I went down there and got those shots of cortisone, and then cortisone again, and all of a sudden I was getting sicker and sicker. My immune system was just completely screwed up, and everything that came along. I had bronchitis every 6 weeks for 3 years. I was just constantly sick.
Wow.
Until they figured out I developed an infection in my intestinal tract from all these antibiotics and dysentery and cortisone reaction, all that stuff. And then it just took me about 3 years went by. I went to 10 different doctors. I spent every penny I had on medical bills. And then after all that, and one doctor in Maryland finally figured out what it was. And he said, the problem is you're going to have to take medicine for as long as you were sick through my entire intestinal tract. So it's about 2.5 years on some medicine.
Wow. And
then one day after about 5.5, 6 years, whatever it was, I woke up and I was like, my God, I can see clearly today. I can think clearly today. And then that was it. I spent 10 minutes in the gym, and the next day 15, and so on and so on. And after about a year, I'm like, that's it, I'm going back.
Yeah.
But I mean, I never thought I'd be able to go back all those years. I mean, I thought I was going to die for 3 years every night I went to bed.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. And you were saying you had you made arrangements with Titan to start with them before you went?
When I came down, I was supposed to go. I had a tryout with them, and then I said, I want to wrestle with you guys more than anything. That's been my ultimate goal. But I said I gave this guy my word that I would wrestle in South Africa, and he's already got the flyers out. He has me working main event down there for 3 weeks. Well, to them, it was no big deal.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was talking with Pat Patterson and one of the other guys in the office.
Terry Garvin?
It might have been. I don't want to say because I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're like, well, just start with us when you get back. They didn't care.
Yeah.
So anyway, I came back. Some time went by and they put me on a show. I was just so sick that it took everything I had not to black out in the match. I actually had a good match.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't do it. I was just fighting to keep from passing out the whole time. And about a year or two later, they put me on another one. And I said to Pat, I appreciate this. And I had a good match again. I wrestled Mike Sharp the one night, and I forget who I wrestled the other time, but we actually had a pretty good match. And it was pretty good. They were good houses.
Yeah.
Even Gene Okerlund came up to me at that time. He goes, I'm pretty sure we have a spot for you because the matches went pretty well.
Yeah.
And I told Pat, I said, Pat, I feel like living hell. I'm still sick. I won't ever bother you again. Do I feel like I can come back? So then around 90, end of 96, 97, whatever it was, I showed up at one of the events and talked with him in person and said, I think I'm ready to come back. And, and even I remember, Vince may not remember, but he was even a little reluctant because I was out of the ring for 6 years. And Pat and them, they gave me a chance. They put me on the road for a little while. Some of the matches went well. Then they put me back in Stanford in the ring over there for a week or two. And, so I spent a few weeks just polishing up. And then fortunately, I got the shot and was back on the road for a while.
Wow. Was it hard once you started getting better and getting back in the gym to get your muscle tone back and get your athleticism coordination back down?
I didn't feel too bad with that. And believe it or not, when I was sick, I don't know how, I actually just stayed large. I gained weight, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't look overly heavy, but I did gain some weight. I was about 290 at one point when I first started going back to the gym. And I just kept pretty good strength. I said to my brother, because he was in the gym with me there each week, I'm like, I don't understand this. I just spent 2.5 years or a few years, whatever it was, in bed, and my strength's about the same.
Yeah.
So it's kind of bizarre, but all I did was eat and sleep. I probably slept 18, 20 hours a day for 2.5 or 3 years. I couldn't really function much. I was just exhausted.
Yeah.
So,
was the WWF in contact with you throughout the time, or did you just kind of stay away until you were ready to come back?
Yeah, I would call, talk to Pat. From the best of my recollection, I would call, talk to Pat, Terry. I think sometimes I talked with Gurria because I knew him from the independents, but it was primarily Patterson. But no, it's not like they were calling me, hounding me when I could come back, because I hadn't even really started with them.
Yeah.
So it was just, here and there, and they would put me on shows to see what I could do.
Yeah.
And that was, they did that. They gave me like 3 different shows like that. And like I said, the last time I told myself, I won't ever bother you again until I can give you a definite answer. I'm not going to have to pull this and go home sick again. Yeah. So.
Was it hard? Like, because what I hear from the guys all the time is the worst part about being injured is mentally not being able to work out, not being able to be physical. Did you go crazy just not being able to be as physical as you used to be?
I couldn't stand it because like I had been working out since the time I was about 13 years old. So not being able to train was eating at me. Not being able to just go bang on the heavy bags and do some, wrestling with people was driving me crazy. I couldn't do anything physical. If I dropped down the floor and did 50 push-ups, I'd be tired for 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
I never forget, I had an 85-pound dumbbell at home. I'd pick it up, I'd do 1 set of curls with this arm, 1 with this arm, and I'd sleep for 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
It was just awful. And, there were many nights where I'd have to keep thinking of reasons just not to blow my head off. Yeah. I mean, when you're sick for years, and like from the infection in my stomach, my vision was being distorted, so I couldn't even read a book. I couldn't, so it's one of those things. And there were about 20 times where I decided to come up with reasons with my family or whatever not to do something drastic. Yeah.
Wow. Now, once you did finally start working for the WWF, and you knew you were ready, they knew you were ready. Did they come up with a gimmick for you beforehand, or did they kind of just figure they would play it out, or how did that work out?
I don't really ever remember discussing that with them. We kind of just let it flow. And I wore my karate pants, and I felt funny wearing my karate pants, and they hated the fact that I wore them because I actually did train my legs all the time. I just wore them because I always felt funny doing a karate gimmick in my weapons routine, just wearing a pair of trunks. It just didn't seem to go together. I know Vince didn't like me wearing karate pants. He said something to me a few times about it, but we just kind of agreed, I guess, that it kind of went with the gimmick. Yeah. But I told him I'd done the lethal weapon gimmick in Calgary for a little while, and I just like wearing. I like doing my weapons routines. I think that's what kind of just stuck. Yeah. Now, out down the road, we come up with some other scenarios. Some of them were actually pretty good gimmicks and stuff, but we just kind of never switched. I just kept doing it. Yeah. I thought if I ever went back, I had a couple other, interesting gimmicks in mind, but I don't know if I'll ever go back anymore. Yeah. So
it seems at the time, in that era, it was rare for a guy just come out with black pants and black boots. Obviously, Steve Austin, the black trunks and black boots, but it was rare, when you came out, without the flash, and that's why I asked.
Yeah. Yeah, I just tried to make up for it, doing some. I tried to, show speed in the ring with the weapons and hands, because at that time there was a lot of popular athletic guys in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had a good crew in there at that time. It's not like you come in there and all of a sudden you jump to the top. I mean, when you have Austin and Rock and Mankind and Undertaker and Kane and Shawn Micheals and Hunter and on and on and on, you have a hell of a crew to try to work your way up past. Yeah. So, and you're not gonna make it up here unless you're outstanding talent, and by that I mean talented on the mic, talented in the ring. A lot of the guys have talent in the ring, but it just doesn't mean you have overall talent. Yeah. So.
Did you come in early? Because I remember when you started the angle where you jumped the rail, it was you took the place of the Patriot, right? Patriot got hurt, and there was a pay-per-view coming up.
Yeah.
Were you supposed to start then, or did they push it up because Patriot was hurt, or were there alternative plans?
Well, you know what? The first time I ever started with them, I actually jumped the rail in Hershey.
Oh.
Well, I actually live, 5 miles or 10 miles, whatever, from the Hershey Arena. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't planned. Somehow it just came about that that's where I'm going to start. Huh. So it was kind of bizarre. I mean, maybe they had it in the back of their mind, well, this is a good place to start. But if they did, they never divulged that to me. Yeah. As far as I know, it's just a coincidence. That's where we started. Although Vince is pretty bright. So I'm thinking, well, if he's from that area, stick him in then. Yeah. But nobody ever told me that for sure. So anyway, that's where I jumped in, and I did that pay-per-view later on.
Yeah.
So,
did you like that angle debuting by jumping over the guardrail?
I did.
Yeah.
One thing I wish I'd have done myself. I wish I'd have just gone to a small territory and done like a few weeks in the ring, working in front of crowds every day for my own personal satisfaction before I went there and did that. I felt most of what I did in the ring was okay, but I just feel in the beginning some of it could have been brushed up because I was kind of just practicing with a couple of guys at home. We had a ring at home.
Oh, okay.
But I wish I'd actually gone somewhere and spent a few weeks doing matches every day.
Yeah.
I think things would have come off a little better. But I mean, for the most part, everything in the ring went pretty well.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you did independence to warm up before you started up there.
Not a one.
Wow.
I mean, we had a ring. But when I say we practice, I mean, we're doing matches in the ring. Like, I wanted to get to the point where I was calling 15, 20-minute matches without talking about, discussing a thing. Just go in there and wrestle and do it. And, so mentally I was preparing myself for all that. And I was in the ring, on my own a couple hours a day doing stuff. So it's not like I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume it was easier for somebody like you to get acceptance from the locker room since you probably knew a lot of the guys from Stampede and came up with them and that kind of thing.
When I, this is funny. Well, at the time, like I didn't, when I was in Japan, when I went over there, I had some problems in the States. So it's kind of bizarre to even say this, but I promised my family and my girlfriend I wouldn't get in any trouble over in Japan because I had some fights and stuff over here. So I'm like, okay, well, I get over to Japan. I'm there with Vader and Buzz Sawyer. Well, they were younger back then and they were just total assholes. So anyway, I sucked it up, didn't do anything. And plus I have a copy of my contract somewhere. It was in my contract that if I screwed up or got in any fights over there, they could send me home with half the amount of pay I was guaranteed.
Oh, wow.
Well, back then, I wanted the money and needed the money. It was the first place I had been. So anyway, I put up with these two and I just couldn't wait to get back to the States because I just wanted to pummel them.
Yeah.
So we get back to the States. Well, Buzz ran through the security checkpoint and threw his clothes in the garbage. So we didn't have to check in or anything like that and just ran. I never saw him again, but he fell over dead, cutting his grass or something. Well, good riddance, Buzz. But, and then Vader, I actually went to Hershey that night. I hadn't seen him in 6 years or 7 years after I was out. I saw him in Japan, then I got over being sick and I got my health back, was back training. And I actually went to Hershey in like 97, somewhere around there, just because I wanted to go up there. I went up there just to kick the shit out of him. That's the reason I went to Hershey. Yep.
Wow.
So I walked in, Bulldog was in there, Owen was in there. Well, the whole crew was there. And, Owen's like, what are you doing here? I said, oh, and you were in Japan with me. I said, well, this is the first time I felt healthy and Vader's in town. So I came up here to beat the shit out of him. And they just looked at me. So I said hi to the guys and stuff. And Vader came down the hall and I had my hair cut short. I had hair long back then.
Oh, okay.
And long story short, he came up and I told him why I was there. Well, after he knew I was serious. I mean, it's like I squared off and said I came here for one reason,
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't know what happened back then. Well, he apologized to me twice.
Yeah.
I might sound like an idiot or a jerk saying this, but I really didn't want him to apologize because he and Buzz made life miserable for me for 6 weeks over there, and I wanted to beat the shit out of him bad.
Yeah.
So he apologized, and I looked like a total idiot at that point. If I had started cracking somebody, that's just apologize twice in front of 20 men, in the locker room. So I'm like, this is brutal, I said, Owen, and Owen's like, the hell with it. He goes, you apologize, who cares anymore? And then Bulldog's like, why don't you come back in? Well, then Brian Pillman was in there too. And it's funny, everybody I'm naming are all my good friends and none of them are around anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, they all put in a word. Brett put in a word for me, stuff like that. Well, then I went to another one of the shows in Bethlehem, I think it was, talked with a couple of guys in the office. And then I worked my way in shortly thereafter.
Yeah. Was it the whole thing with Buzz and Vader? Was it that they knew that you had that clause in your contract, so they knew that they could push you without retribution? Or
I don't know. They were just pushing me, and now I was 22 at the time, but nevertheless, I've never let anybody. It's like I sucked it up because I had been in some fights here, and my attorney was having a fit. I said, he goes, no matter what you're doing, you got to stop getting in any trouble. And it wasn't trouble I had started. It was just from working in bars, just knocking people out.
Yeah.
But, then my girlfriend was having a fit. My mother was having a fit. So they're like, promise us you're not getting in any trouble while you're gone for 6.5 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I promise. Cut me a break here.
Yeah.
Well, after promising, I get over here with the two biggest jerks on the planet. Now, I will say this. Vader's changed. He's gotten older. He's matured. He was a pain in the ass back then. If he's a man, he'll say he was a pain in the ass back then, but he's changed. He's different, and he's like all the other guys. He kind of grew out of it, mature, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Buzz was just a total jerk. Don't know if he ever changed or not because I never saw him again.
Yeah.
I don't care if I ever did. If I did, I would have liked to have cracked him too. But anyway, I don't think they would have known that was in my claws. I think they were just used to ribbing new people. And I can take ribs, I can take jokes as good as the next guy, and I can give them out. But they were pushing things way too far. And it's like when they know you're a new guy, well, they have their positions sewn up over there. Well, for one, you're worried about, am I ever going to be able to come back over here and wrestle again if I do something to these guys? I promised my family I'm not going to. It was just a pain in the butt for 6 weeks for me. And I couldn't wait to get back home, just as cold as that sounds. I just wanted to see those guys bad. Yeah.
So it's like it took everything, I would imagine, your willpower not to do anything.
It did. And then a couple of other guys were like, why don't you? I'm like, I don't want. Back then, it's like I didn't even want to tell people that. Well, it was in my contract, and I promised my family. It's like they're going to be like, oh yeah. But that's just the way it was. And anybody that knows me, I don't lie about anything like that. It was just this is the way it was.
Yeah.
So
wow. Now, when you came into the WWF, it was right before Survivor Series when Brett was leaving. So there was all that stuff going on with him and Shawn. And you're a heart guy. You come in from Calgary. What was the dynamic like in the locker room with Shawn and Brett?
Leading up to that evening, I think everything was okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how Brett really expected to leave WWF as a champion and go to another league. I don't get that. If you are a businessman in that type of business like you say you are, then you know what has to be done, and that's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
So, and Vince is pretty sharp to pull something over on. So, I'm sure he, had things worked out that night. People to this day still don't know if Shawn had anything to do with it or not.
He says he did. He says now he's done interviews where he said, yeah, I was in on it.
Yeah. I don't know how he couldn't be.
Right.
But I'm not going to come out here and say, yes, he is, because I don't know for sure. I'm not going to, I don't know if it was his idea, Vince's idea. Don't know and don't care.
Yeah.
But if I was in Vince's position, I'd have done the same damn thing. If I owned the most popular league, I'll be damned if the guy's going to leave here with my heavyweight belt and go to my competition.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you, some guys think that it may have been a work. The whole entire thing is a work. Do you think that there's any validity to that?
I mean, even that Brett,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that is a working business. Brett's a hell of a worker, and Shawn's a hell of a worker, and Vince is a hell of a worker.
Yeah.
So when you got those three minds together, it could be anything.
Yeah. Now, I remember the Raw after Survivor Series. I think Mick Foley didn't show up at a protest, and there were some guys trying to get some kind of a protest going. Did you feel any pressure from some of your friends over there to not show up? No,
I did. I actually don't even remember them protesting it, to tell you the truth.
I think Mick Foley was the only one. Not like everybody was saying, "Oh, we're not coming," and he was the only one that wound up staying home. Everybody else wound up showing up anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I didn't even recall that, but. Like I said, if you're the businessman and you look at that situation, you can't hold that against the office for doing that. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, yeah. Who back at that time when you first came in, who did you ride with?
When I first went in there, I rode with Hawk and Animal, because they knew that I was good friends with Bulldog. They were all tight. Bulldog was riding with them too, off and on. Yeah. So I rode with all three of them. I did that for about 6 months till those guys kind of, showed me around some of the cities, blah, 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 stuff like that. And then I started riding with Shamrock. Ken and I rode together for 2.5 years.
Wow.
And then I rode with Bob Holly a bit. Bob and I just seemed to have the same work ethic for the gym. Neither one of us cared to go out much. We just wanted to eat, go to bed, get up and train.
Yeah.
It's like, I never liked rooming with anybody. Neither did he, neither did Ken. We just get, see you tomorrow, get our own room. If we get up, we eat, go to the gym. That's kind of like traveling. Everybody has guys that they do. Some guys like going out, going to the gym later in the day. Some guys like going to the gym first thing in the morning. Everybody's different. Yeah. So you ride with somebody that's compatible. I just, got along with those guys.
Was it hard to keep up your workout schedule with the travel schedule and everything?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
You just have to. You have to get used to that schedule on the road. It's not like you fly out at 5 a.m., land, and go to the gym and you feel great. You are exhausted. It takes you a couple of months to get used to that lifestyle. Yeah. You just constantly run down. You might get up at 5 like I said, fly a couple hours. You leave at 7, get there at 9, go rent a car, go to the gym, go eat, get to the arena by 1. You're stuck there the whole day, and the next day fly somewhere again. And you have to force yourself to get to the gym. But there are many days where it's like you have to learn to sleep wherever you can. You sleep in the locker room, you sleep on a plane, you make up for it wherever possible, or you won't make it through that lifestyle.
Yeah. Is it hard now? Now you've said you're a guy that you don't like to put anything in your body, but is it hard not to succumb to the pressures? Because a lot of the guys we've done interviews with over the years, they say, we got to take something to get us up. We got to take something to put us to sleep. They say sometimes that lifestyle on the road kind of breeds.
I never took anything to get going in the morning and never anything to go to sleep. Yeah. Although I know a lot of the guys do. Yeah. Somehow I just, like, I'm even to this day, that's my fiance, it's like the alarm goes off, my feet hit the floor. I'm up that split second. There's no snooze button for me or anything. I mean, I'm up that instant. I've always been like that. I jump up. I may not want to get out of bed. I don't want to go to the gym first thing before we go to a flight, but I do it. Yeah. Now, if I wouldn't have somewhat of a mental block, so to speak, about taking stuff, it's possible. Like, I'll tell you one thing: if I didn't have that reaction to steroid and cortisone years ago, I probably would have taken more of that when I was on the road, just because it helps you recuperate faster, and you're so damn tired and run down that it does help. But for that reason, I never did. You couldn't pay me to take it.
I was going to say, I guess that's enough to steer you away from anything.
Oh, I mean, like, I'll never forget my girlfriend at the time just touching me. It looked like I had the worst sunburn you ever saw for 3 days in a row after that first reaction. Wow. It looked like I was on fire. And after that, and then it happened again. I'm like, okay, that's it for me. Yeah. But had I not experienced that, I probably would have done some, because there were some days in the road where I just felt so run down and so tired, and you feel like your muscles just aren't recuperated enough to even go back to the gym. Yeah. But so, I mean, I don't fault the guys, for taking it. I mean, some of them I think take more than they need to. Some of the guys need to realize nobody on the planet cares if you weigh 260 or 240. Right. I just, they need to know that, if you can stay lean and in good shape, nobody on this planet cares but you. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the guys in books and in interviews, they've taken shots at Mark Marrow. I know you kind of went toe to toe with him a little bit on one of those interview shows, but as a worker, is he as bad as the guys say that he is? Or his work? Yeah. I'll tell you one thing, like, I don't mean to stammer here, but like, say I was doing a book. Yeah. I have no intentions of ever just putting guys down that their work's the shits. I don't like this guy. I don't like that guy. The only reason I brought up the Buzz Vader thing is because I'm just point blank, and it's nothing I haven't told them to, told him to his face. Yeah. And that got straightened out. So, but I just can't say, I don't want to sit here and say his works the shits or it's a guy. I don't want to put guys down.
I hate even asking you, but it's to the fact where like almost every guy like mentions him, at some point.
I think a lot of guys, I don't know if his work was all that bad. I think a lot of guys just had a bitter taste in their mouth for him. So anything negative that can be said about him goes that way. I don't know why Mark came off bitter on some of those news programs we did. I mean, it makes it look like he's on a crusade here to clean some things up, which... Who made you the self-appointed globe-trotting peacemaker or crusader of wrestling? It's like, calm down. But what gets me with Mark, I always got along with him. I did. That news show had pissed me off that one night. But I'll never understand why he has a bitter tone in his voice at all for wrestling. Because I think, don't hold me to this either, but I think he was one of the first guys to have a guaranteed contract in there.
And I think that's a lot of the root of the bitterness from guys from that era.
Well, it may be the root of their bitterness, but he shouldn't have any bitterness. Right. What the hell is up your butt that you have to complain about when you had the first guaranteed contract for all those years? Yeah. You had it made. Yeah. Stop complaining, man. Calm down. Go enjoy your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, not to get off topic, but, I never heard a peep out of him for the last 8-9 years about it. And then all of a sudden... he's on TV every 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's not like, believe me, I didn't come out of the woodwork and just volunteer to do those TV shows. I don't know how those people knew to get a hold of me or why. Now, Benoit was one of my best friends, and I knew him longer than anyone, but I wasn't the closest to him. Mm-hmm. Eddie was by far closest. I'd say even Dean Malenko, Jericho, those guys were probably closer with him from years on the road. I knew Benoit from being in Stampede, and we were tight, and we were together every day. And then I just knew him for a longer period of time. I considered him one of my best friends because I knew I could trust him 100%. I knew he didn't, snitch on people. He was, and back then he was a good guy, contrary to whatever happened down the road.
Yeah.
But and I lost my train of thought there.
About Mero popping up on the shows.
And about Mero popping up. So these news people, they contacted me, like I said, and I don't know how they found out that I knew him so long. But a couple of those places called me 5 times a day until I actually finally agreed to go ahead and do them. Now, I'm sure part of it was because nobody in WWF was allowed to do any. Right. They put a gag order on them, so to speak, for a month and a half. And then that narrowed the choices down. So I'm sure that was a big part of it. But I still don't know how they got my number. I don't know how they knew to contact me or anything. And I was even on vacation. And one time I'm like, man, we're on vacation. We're at the beach. Well, they called me back an hour later. I know they were trying to get other guys, and maybe they weren't as knowledgeable on Chris, or maybe they just said flat out no. I'm finally like, all right, I'll do it, But after doing so many of them, it became monotonous. I was by the 5th or 6th one, I was just like tired of it.
Yeah.
What Chris did was just brutal. I feel worse for his family because they're the ones that still have to sit around and go through all the negative, comments made by people. I don't know what spurred it on, numerous headshots, combination of all the drugs, different things like that. I'm painkillers. I know they did a test on his brains that it looked like an 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Something like that,
Something like that, which I believe, because there's days a lot of us have trouble grasping our thoughts completely. And I don't mean just from chair shots. I mean just when you have 3,000 wrestling matches and you just land 10 times a night, it rattles you. When you get hit with chairs 20 times, you land on the concrete floor, it's easy to have a couple dozen concussions. If I've had a dozen concussions, Benoit's had 25 concussions.
Yeah.
And
I guess you really don't know at the time if you had a concussion. You just keep wrestling if you're on the road.
Right. Now, I know there were times where I got checked where I had some, but then there were other nights where I hit my head even a lot harder. So I knew I was even worse off with those concussions than I was before. But I just didn't get them. I just didn't take time off.
Wow.
But I've seen Chris, and I don't mean just single us two. I've seen many of the guys take a lot of hard shots.
Yeah.
So,
how important was the timing of you getting into the WWF at the time, like right around 97, 98, right before it took off? You seemed to get in like right at the perfect time.
I think I did well getting in at that point. Well, for one, the houses were good.
Yeah.
2, the crew was good. Now, there's a flip side to that, though, too. If you get in when the business is not good and they don't know who they want on top, it's easier to work your way up. When you get in and it's slammed like that with talent, you've got to bust your ass to get to here. Here's the top. Here you got 12 matches on the card, and you're climbing your ear, It's not that easy to get to the top when there's all that talent.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the guys back then got into the business now, I think it'd be easier to climb up. They do have some good talent in there, but again, talent is mic talent and ring talent. Now, they have some guys in there that are good on the microphone, but I don't know if the guys are reading or pre-writing too many of their promos for them. I just think they need to let a couple of the guys wing it. They need to just let them fly, because when those catchphrases and things click in your mind, it's not something that you can sit at home and just think. It's just, you can sit there and think for 10 years and not think of a great catchphrase to use in the ring. But when you wing it, sometimes it just flows and you're like, there it is, and it hits you and you keep on going with it. And then the people have something they can't wait for your promo because they can't wait for it then so they can chime in with you, like Austin's, that's the bottom line, Rock, and so on. And once they develop that niche, then they had more and more catchphrases. And there's nobody in there right now that has that.
Yeah.
They have great wrestling talent. They have guys that are good on the mic, but they don't have guys that are phenomenal on the mic that can end it like that. And I think Cena and Orton and them possess the potential to do that, but they're not giving them free reign to fly with it on their own. Yeah. That's just my opinion.
It seems like when they talk, there's a hesitation as if, you're acting. Mm-hmm. Whereas, maybe back like for an Austin or a Rock or a Ric Flair, they're talking as if, they're having a conversation, no matter what kind of a promo they're cutting. It seems like from the perspective from an outsider anyway. What as far as Steve Austin, you got in right as he was starting to take off. You were there when he became Stone Cold Steve Austin, the superstar. What was he like to work with?
Steve's a good guy. He he seemed to, like when you're in that spot, you're under a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, some guys used to be like, well, Steve's over there in his own dressing room, doesn't hang out and bullshit with the guys. I'm like, when you're in that spot, you don't understand what's on your mind. You're doing a 15 minute promo. Hell, a sitcom's 22 minutes. It's 30 minutes, 8 minutes of commercials. He's doing a 15-minute promo. That means he's doing damn near a sitcom by himself.
Yeah.
There's no second takes here. There's no screwing up. You got it in your head. You got to fly with it. So he's doing that when the show opens. He's got a main event match to do. You're tired. When you have days off, you're the top dog. You got appearances everywhere. You have a lot on your mind. So those guys need a little space to be able to focus on what they're doing.
Yeah.
Now, one thing with Steve, he was great on the microphone and he was great in the ring. Same with Rock. Rock became great on the microphone and great in the ring. Those guys were could go.
Yeah. Not to digress, but you were just talking about the pitfalls of coming in at such a big time in the business at that era. How do you think you would have fared if you wound up coming in like 89 or 90 and you never got sick at that time when WWF was starting to take a little bit of a decline and they were changing to more an athletic style?
I think at that time, well, I was younger. My psychology was at its peak. I could go all day. And I thought at that point in time, if I got in there, even though business was going on a slight decline, it doesn't matter. You ride it out. Your popularity's here. So when it does start turning around, because wrestling's always going in cycles, up and down, up and down. It's always been like that. I thought, well, if you keep your popularity up, people know you. When it starts taking off, now you're going to be in one of the top dog spots, and you make a whole lot more money than being out of it all those years, even though it was on the downside for a little while, and then coming in when it takes off because they already got all the top dogs here. Yeah, that was just my logic. I don't know if it's right or not, but that was my personal belief.
Yeah. What are your memories of your first WrestleMania? You teamed with Too Cold Scorpio.
It's fun being out there. It gets you hyped. If you're out there and the people are popping for what you're doing, and you got them into the match, that's what makes it. Like, when those guys put on their in the main event matches, when they suck the people in, and if the people don't know who's going to win, and you got them, it's like you're doing your job. It's if you're getting a reaction, whether it's a good reaction or a bad reaction, if you're getting a reaction, you're good to go. Yeah. And but when you perform in front of that many people, it's pretty easy to get psyched up, and you want to perform well. You want to go, you want to be crisp, you want to be fast, and just look at what you're doing. And I'm sure those guys just eat it up, when they're doing those pay-per-views anymore. When you got 50 and 60,000 people there, that's great. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about The Rock. You worked with him quite a bit early on, right when he was starting to come up through the nation. Mm-hmm. Could you kind of get a feel that he was really starting to take off when you were in the ring with him?
When I first started with the nation, I enjoyed that angle because those guys had a lot of heat. So the fact that they had a lot of heat, it made it easier as a babyface, good guy, to be in there working against them. Yeah. So I liked that angle. I felt Rock's ring presence was good, and his microphone ability was okay. Mm-hmm. And then his microphones kept getting better and better. And then a few years later, it kind of clicked on him like it did in Austin, and that was it. He was off and running. Yeah. But he was a good worker back then too. I just mean that his overall talent peaked a couple years later. Yeah.
Did you like teaming with Ken Shamrock? Because I know you teamed with him against the Nation.
Nope. Yeah, I actually thought those angles went well. And then when Farouk came with us, I thought that when the three of us were out, I thought that was a really good angle. Things to be going well. It seemed like the entire card was good. Yeah. So when I was tagging with Ken against the Nation and stuff, I thought the matches were good. The people were into them. But if you actually watch the whole card, there didn't seem to be any matches on there where the people were like, let's go eat now. It's like everything was interesting. The whole 2-hour show seemed to be good. It was like that for a few years. We actually had a really good crew back then. Yeah. It's funny when you watch back the old shows now, like on 24/7, and you see from start to finish, there was always something for everybody back then. Mm-hmm. It's good stuff. Whose idea was the entrance with the glowing sticks? I remember doing a stick routine for some of the guys in the office. Huh. I can't remember who suggested about having them glow. Now they were real wooden sticks. Mm-hmm. They painted them a certain fluorescent with a certain paint, and the only way they glowed was by certain lighting on the ceiling. Well, I only did it a couple times because it became a pain in the ass for the lighting crew to have to haul those lights, put them up there all the time for that. So I would just do the regular stick routine, or I'd throw my hands when I came out or something like that. But that's actually why I stopped. It just became a hassle to have to rig those every Monday, Tuesday.
Oh, wow. How much feedback did Vince give you, like on your gimmick? What do you say? I like this. I don't like this. You should try this.
He doesn't give a whole lot of personal feedback. It's like if he doesn't like something, he'll tell you.
Yeah.
If you do something and you happen to have an outstanding match in the ring, they'll comment on it. But I can't. None of us would expect him to keep come up every day. Hey, that was good. That was good. You know, that's not him. This is your job. Do it.
Yeah.
If you do it and you do it extremely well, you know, he'll tell you good match. You know, good job tonight. But you know, if it's an okay night and it's you know nothing out of the ordinary and you don't expect anything, which you know you shouldn't expect anything.
Yeah.
So,
did you like turning heel?
I did. I like being the heel. It just seemed to be a little bit easier sometimes, for what my gimmick was, and then even the gimmick with Al Snow when I was still a baby was something that was comical, and then the heel stuff. I like the hardcore stuff. It got frustrating. Like when I did the hardcore for that, you know, almost a year or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things were going pretty well with that, and my popularity came back up and things like that. And then I started tag teaming with Brian Christopher, and that was we actually had a good thing going. I don't mean just outside the ring as far as our vignettes go, but I mean the in ring. We actually had a lot of good matches. I can't remember us having a bad tag match together. And then you know he screwed up and they he got fired, and then they didn't know what to do with me. And I was like, well, my neck's killing me. I have headaches every other day. I'm gonna go get my neck checked. Well, they're like, well, now's a good time because you know that thing happened with Brian. Which believe me, if that wouldn't have happened, I'd have sucked up the pain for another year of it, no matter what. When that happened, when I went home and I had some bone spurs in my neck, and every time I landed, it was just pinching the nerve, giving me headaches and bad headaches.
Yeah.
So and then I ended up staying home, and I was talking with Jim Ross, and he's like, well, you know, why don't you just finish out your contract? And I'm like, well, I mean, if you mean finish it out at home, you know, it just wasn't like me to go sit at home, finish it out. But a lot of guys were injured before in the past and had something similar like that, although it doesn't make it any more fun.
Right.
But, you know, they're like, well, if you can tell us that your neck is 100% and you're not going to have these headaches anymore, you know, call us and we'll put you back on the road. Well, I mean, I had my neck operated on. Well, then after I had it operated on, it took me 11 months to get my strength back. My strength is okay on everything, but it's like the nerve that was pinched over here, it was like when Benoit had it, he had atrophy. Kurt Angle had atrophy. So, I mean, all the guys experienced atrophy and pain and numbness, Austin, everybody. All my pain went up and gave me headaches every day.
Oh, wow.
I had no numbness down, just headaches. The day after my operation, somehow I was getting like decompression symptoms or something, and it was going down my arm. So every day my arm's atrophying now on my shoulder, and now I'm at, you know, my wit's end. I can't train properly. I can't do anything. If I try to bench, my arm's lagging. Well, it took me 11 months of just busting my butt to get back to where I was the day before I got it operated on. And I had that minimal invasive surgery through the front.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like you're laid up for a year like the other guy's surgeries. I mean, you're allowed to go back in a week and start out slow and get back into it.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing. And I was just getting so pissed off. So, you know, about a year went by and stuff. But anyway, even when I saw the guys in the office lately, you know, that's the only question they ever have is your neck 100%? I'm like, well, it's not 100%, but I'm better.
Yeah.
You know, but they want to know that you're not going to have any problems because there's no reason for them to put you back in an angle if you're going to be out with.
Yeah. Invest all that time and money into it. What was the deal? I know they were like, it seemed like they were teasing some kind of feud with you and the head of security, Jim Dobson, at some point or something.
Well, they had Jim do a few things like that with different people. That was a while ago. I'm trying to remember exactly how that went. I can't remember all the guys that they had him get involved with in there. I can't say much about that because I don't remember that exactly how it went.
Yeah, I just remember. I remember vividly something. That's why I wrote it down. I remember something, but I don't remember a whole lot about it. How were you approached to do the Brawl for All? Did they kind of pull you aside, or was it just like, hey, you're booked for Brawl for All? Or
first of all, they called a bunch of us when we were at home on our days off, asked us if we want to do this Brawl for All. I said, what are the rules? They said, well, you can kick, you can punch, you can take people down. I said, I'm allowed to kick people. I said, you mean I can shin kick, I can leg kick? I mean like Muay Thai fighting. Mm-hmm. They said, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. That was my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my main thing is Muay Thai, leg kicking. And So I'm like, okay, well, we get the TV. Well, I'm the only one that wanted the leg kick out of the other, all 16 guys there. So they nixed the leg kick. And I'm like, now you told me on the phone I could kick, I got worked into that one. So anyway, I still didn't believe it was even a shoot until the night of the fight. I honestly didn't. They kept telling me it was a pro for. I'm thinking, we're not going to be out there boxing and wrestling, and amateur wrestling. I just didn't believe it. When we got there and they pulled the gloves out of the boxes, and we had these giant new 16-ounce gloves on and stuff like that, I'm like, I guess it is for real tonight. So I hadn't trained at all or done anything.
Oh, you didn't train for it or anything?
Not the first one. I didn't.
Okay.
I did deep down. I didn't think it was real.
Yeah.
So I thought they were working me or something. Anyway, so we get there. Well, I know Mark's a good boxer, and I decent boxing skills. But I just kept taking him down, kept shooting on him. But it's hard with those giant mittens on your hand. They were brand new out of the plastic. It was like trying to take people down with their hands like this.
Yeah.
We only went 3 1-minute rounds. I think I took him down 13 times.
Yeah.
But and then I got a couple of good shots off him, quite pretty good. But I knew he'd be hard to catch on the chin. He's pretty good at keeping his chin down. Pretty good with his hands moving. And if you actually want to get down to it, if it was MMA rules, it wouldn't last long.
Yeah.
But if it was strictly boxing, he'd have the upper hand boxing just about anybody because he has good boxing skills. I'll give him that.
Yeah. So you thought all the way up until the night of the fight that you were able to leg kick and
oh yeah. Well, no. Was it the day of the fight? It might have been the day of the fight.
Wow.
Oh yeah, but and I used to practice those things all the time. I used to do like 200 leg kicks a day.
Yeah.
Just get faster and faster and faster with them. And I was like, okay, well, I can leg kick, and there's nobody going to get close to me with their hands. No leg kicking.
Now, we talked to Bart. We did an interview with Bart Gunn. I guess it was a couple months ago, maybe even last year sometime. And we talked a lot about it. And he was saying that it was pretty much designed to get Steve Williams over the tournament. And did you get that vibe going in that it was to get Doc over? Or?
It's possible. Now, after I fought Mark and I realized it was real, then I went home and started training my butt off. Yeah. I had a ring. So I called one of my friends who was an amateur wrestler. He was about 6'3", 330 pounds. Mm-hmm. And we were in the ring wrestling. And I had some of the smaller guys shooting on me. So we're training our butt off for this. Well, he did a sit-out throw on me and sat in the side of my leg and almost broke my leg in half. And I tore all the cartilage in my leg, so I had to get my knee scoped. Mm. And now I'm pissed off because I wanted to fight in it after, at that point. Anyway, so that's why I didn't continue in it. But Bart's probably right. They probably thought Steve would coast through it. But I had done stuff like that my whole life. So did Ken. So has Bart. Bart's actually got good amateur wrestling skills and stuff too. Yeah. And he's a big guy. Yeah. So even the other guys in the fight.
Marrow, he was at the boxing background.
Boxing background.
Godfather was in there.
Yeah, Godfather. all those guys, Godfather Draws, all those guys. They're big guys that are athletic. Mm-hmm. So anybody that's big and athletic has a puncher's chance. Yeah. It's the way it goes. Yeah. So, but Bart's probably right about that. And then Bart ended up catching all those guys with that 11 hook. I was laughing. I'm like, oh, okay. I would have liked to have fought Bart. I thought that would have been interesting. Yeah. But I get along with Bart well.
Yeah. He was telling us that the day of the fight that he had with Doc, that he was willing to work the match. And he kept asking the guys, like, well, do you want me to put him over? And he said a lot of the agents would go up to him and get him riled up as far as, just planning stuff in his head. And Doc said this or whatever. Did you get that vibe that like the agents were like riling you guys up or anything?
Well, when I fought Mark, a couple of them said some stuff to me. I don't want to go into the great detail on that evening, but yeah, once I realized it was a shootout there, now I know what all that was about. Yeah. Okay. Wow. And then after all that, he wound up getting knocked out by Butterbean and then leaving the company. Yeah. Well, Bart should have stuck with what he was doing in the beginning. Mm-hmm. For one, he's a good wrestler. He hasn't been throwing hands for 10 years at that point like Butterbean was. You're stepping in and doing the thing Butterbean's the best at. Yeah. Well, shoot on him. Yeah. I know you wanted to prove a point, but he tried to turn himself into a boxer in that period of time. And you either have good boxing skills and you're quick with your hands and you can slip punches and move, or you don't. Yeah. And he was better at brawling. It was like he should have just shot, punch. He should have just kept on doing things like that. But if you stand there and just try to outbox a guy who's been doing that, to make his living, it's not going to work.
Yeah. And I think if I remember right, he said that he wound up fighting Bob Holly in one of the rounds, and that the two of them made an agreement beforehand that they weren't going to punch each other.
They weren't going to take each other down.
They weren't. Okay. I remember it was one or the other.
Yep. I do know that because Bob told me that. They agreed that they're going to just stand there and slug it out.
Okay.
There wasn't anything fixed about it. They just decided to slug it out. And Bob got lucky that he kept his hands at his chin because, Bart could throw some pretty good hooks. Yeah. But they actually stood there and just slugged it out.
Yeah. Was the office aware of your Muay Thai background before they put you in there, or do you think they were kind of surprised?
Well, I mean, they knew I could kick and stuff like that. And I had done, and I had even done some jiu-jitsu for a few years before I went back in WWF. Mm-hmm. So with I had done boxing, I had done karate most of my life from age 13 through college, through working in Florida. So I had about 10 years of Kempo and Shotokan and boxing and stuff under my belt. Yeah. So, but I mean, like, I'm sure a couple of them knew because I used to just bang the heavy bags if we'd won, in some of the arenas and stuff like that. But, but like a lot of the guys were pretty athletic. Mm. But, like I said, some of them were still pretty good shooters. Some of them were with their hands. The kicking just happened to be, what I like the best is leg kicking. Yeah. And I always felt comfortable with my hands too. But, I don't know. I still dislike the fact that we even did the Brawl for all, if you want my honest opinion. Yeah. I mean, all the guys in there were pretty tight, and you're trying to put on a good show, and all of a sudden you're stuck out there to, punch out. If I have a good reason, I don't care, who you are. But I mean, like when you're your friends, you don't have a reason. You're going out there and beating up your friends, and I see that because like a lot of my guys in my MMA school compete, and I'm like, I will never have them paired up against each other because we're in here to make each other better, and that's the way we train. And it just seems funny being put in the ring with guys that you're trying to do well with, and now you're out there to try to knock them out. Yeah. If they say something to make you mad, okay, what makes it easier? But I'm just saying, it's like I've seen that before, and I just didn't think it was a good concept. None of the guys did. I don't know if they'll ever come on here and say that.
Bart didn't. He didn't think it was a good concept either.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know none of the other guys liked it. They all had the same opinion on it we did. Yeah. But at the time, it's like, well, open your mouth, you just go out and do it, and that's what we're doing. Yeah. It's not like we sat around and bitched about it all night. I mean, just for 5 minutes, I'm like, why are you guys be like, why are we doing this? And that's the end of the conversation, and go out and do it. But I know none of them cared for it.
Wow. Were you around the monitor when Bart took out Doc, or? Because Bart was saying that some of the guys were like all around the monitor when he was fighting Doc.
Oh yeah, when there's different things going on, that's the curtain call, so to speak, where everybody's either at the curtain or the monitor watching what's going on. You could be a new guys match, you're like, oh my God, you got to watch this. This is going to be the drizzle and shits tonight, or something different like the box match. So yeah, most of those things the guys watch. Yeah. And when you go backstage, you won't see them because they'll all take it off, but
yeah. And I guess WWE, they must have agreed with you because they've never done anything like that since. So I guess they must be in agreement with you.
Well, do you know why? I don't know if this is exactly how it went, but when we did that Brawl for All, I don't know if they announced to the crowd or told them ahead of time what the rules were and what the premise is behind this whole thing, like what you're supposed to do. I don't think anybody in the crowd knew.
I don't think so either.
So when they watched it, they're like, well, it went over like a fart in church because nobody knew what we were supposed to be doing in there. Yeah. I think if they knew that you get points for this, points for that, and it's a tournament and so on, I think it would have gone over a little better. But, people are like, what in the hell is this? Yeah. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about them earlier in the interview. You wrestled Ken Shamrock a lot. What are your memories of your matches with Ken?
I like working with Ken because, it's at least sometimes when you're friends, you actually get rougher sometimes, but, Ken could take it, I could take it. So, I like working with him sometimes. Plus, at that point in time, we were about the same height, same weight, same build. So, I don't know, I liked it. And, he had a reputation at that time, from the UFC and stuff like that. So I liked working with him, and I considered him one of the better known guys, known guys in there to work with, as well as all the other. So, I enjoyed that.
Why do you think so many pro wrestlers, especially nowadays, it seems like now more than ever, so many pro wrestlers want to get into MMA? Lesnar, Bobby Lashley wants to get into it.
Well, I don't know. If I wouldn't have had so many neck problems, I would have tried to pursue that myself. Instead, I just started an MMA school. Mm-hmm. It's not the fight that screws you up. It's actually training for the fight. Mm-hmm. More of my guys get hurt fighting than they do training than they do in the fight. Yeah. Last week, one of my guys' finger was sticking out to here. Another one broke his thumb. Another one dislocated his kneecap.
Wow.
I was in 2 days. You know, and then you put them in a fight, and they'll come out. One of them have a knot here or there, and you know, that's it. I think it could be a little worse, but I mean, overall, from what I've seen, when you have that many guys training, you get hurt a lot more than you do in the actual fight.
Yeah.
But anyway, you have to be healthy enough to do that. But, you know, I mean, Brock has a wrestling background. Bobby Lashley has a wrestling background. They need to get their striking down a little better. They need to get their jiu-jitsu down a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, when you have a good wrestling background, let me explain it this way. Putting arm bars on people and pounding them when you get there is the easy part. It's getting them in that position to do it.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a good amateur wrestling background, getting them in that position is a lot easier. Because I got some good wrestlers in my school, and they go. I mean, they just, you know, they would do shooting drills for hours, and they get guy. You know, once you get side mounted or mounted on a guy, pounding from there is the easy part. So those guys have a good wrestling background. They're big guys. They're strong guys. Teaching them to pound and put on some arm bars and chokes is the easy part.
Yeah.
You know, it takes you years to become a great amateur wrestler.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, it's just something else that they want to do. Their you know, WWF thing didn't work out for whatever reasons. So they're just pursuing something else, which they're big athletic guys. I mean, they should actually do well at it.
Yeah. Were you surprised at Brock Lesnar's match, his first match? Anyway?
I was surprised he lost.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how Brock is with his wrestling. I know how strong he is. I knew he would take down Frank Mir immediately. I mean, I told the guys, I said, I don't care what you people think about Frank's jiu-jitsu. He's not going to stop Brock from taking him down. He's just not going to do it. I don't know. I don't think they should have made the guys stand up at one point. Brock had the upper hand, and two, Brock's corners should have been telling him stay tight. When you're on top of a jiu-jitsu guy, this is what they wait for, you to give him a little bit of space. I mean, Brock just needed to stay tight on him and just keep pounding him and doing what he was doing, and I think it would have been over soon. But as he progresses and keeps doing more ground stuff, he is going to be hard to beat.
Yeah. And Kurt Angle does a lot of interviews where he says, you know, he could beat Chuck Liddell, he could beat Randy Couture. You think he could?
No.
No.
I will give credit where credit's due. As far as shooting ability, Kurt's a machine.
Mm-hmm.
He's an absolute. As far as amateur wrestling shooting, I don't think there's anyone better. I don't. But when it comes to punching and doing jiu-jitsu and having that science down, MMA is totally different. And you can, you know, that Kurt needs to get in there and roll with some jiu-jitsu guys who are doing nonstop submissions and then go from there. Because you want to take somebody out of their game, punch them in the mouth. When you're getting hit and kneed and elbowed and everything, it changes the scenario around a bit until you get better and better at your MMA skills.
I think that's what Chuck Liddell, I read an interview with him where he responded to Kurt's challenges. And I think that's exactly what he said. He said it's a whole different ballgame when you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah, I tell my guys that, you know, hey, if this guy's better at this aspect, crack him. If you crack him in the mouth, he becomes a purple belt from a black. Crack him in the mouth again, it becomes, you know, it's like, keep cracking him, his belt level keeps dropping. It's kind of like his skill level keeps dropping.
Yeah. Back to the Shamrock feud. You guys had some interesting matches. You had the parking lot match and the Lion's Den match. Did you like doing those different kind of matches?
Yeah, I thought the Lion's Den match went okay. The parking lot match, I thought the Lion's Den match was decent. I thought the parking lot match was just okay. We wanted to do more, but the ceiling in the parking garage was fairly low. So if you tried to stand up on a car, you couldn't do any throws off of the hood or the roof because the ceiling was too low. So that inhibited some of the things we wanted to do. You know, and then when you put those big round chains around your hand, you know, you hit each other with those. It doesn't make much noise, but it hurts like hell.
Yeah.
So, but I still like doing them. It was different. And it was the fact that I was doing them with him too. It made it a little more fun.
Yeah. Dan Severn did an interview with us, and you were in there around the same time with Dan. And he was talking about right when he was finishing up, and he was doing his last Royal Rumble. And he said, I want to get your thoughts on this, of what would have happened. What do you think would have happened? He said that he contemplated calling WCW and asking them for $100,000 to go into the Royal Rumble and shoot, to go into the Royal Rumble and not go over the top and just stay in there until somebody would throw him over the top. And he said he seriously thought about it. And at the last minute, he didn't do it. But what do you think would have happened in that situation?
It depends who's in the ring.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't have backed out of the ring.
Yeah.
Ken wouldn't have backed out of the ring.
Yeah.
I don't think Taker would go out of the ring.
Yeah.
You know, he might want to go in there and call to shoot. And I got along with Dan when he was in there, but you'd have to watch who was in the ring because you can shoot all you want, but we're all in there. You know, we all of us have the same skills and stuff. So
yeah.
Now Dan's thing's shooting. if he's going to try to stand up and fight, he's in trouble because, as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't have any hand or foot speed.
Yeah.
Dan's thing is shooting on people. Well, if there's a ring full of people, Dan, you can only shoot on one of them. We're just going to waist lock you and
yeah.
If you got to think a little bit. But now, depending what if he was in there near the end, depending who is left in there, is it possible? It's possible to pull that off. But if he's in there with a whole pile of guys, it's really unlikely because those guys will just gang up and throw you over. But if he was actually pulling it off where he had managed to stay in there with a couple guys left, it's
conceivable, huh?
That's conceivable. He's great on the mat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What are your memories of matches that you had in WWF with Owen Hart?
Owen and I had some good matches.
Yeah.
I thought we had some decent angles, some funny angles with him doing the Blue Blazer gimmick and stuff like that. We worked angles for a few months. I'll never forget one time in Boston we did this thing and he didn't duck. I kicked him right in the jaw, knocked him out cold in front of the whole arena. I mean, he was out like a light.
Wow.
And it was like, oh man. And I'll never forget that because they kept asking him his name and address in the hospital. He couldn't think clearly for about 3 days. And for months, he goes, Steve, you owe me for 3 days of my life. Because he couldn't remember anything clearly for 3 days. I'm like, I apologized to him. Well, he knew it was an accident. Yeah. But he used to bust my balls bad about that.
Did he ever rib you in the middle of a match somewhere?
Well, he ribbed everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I don't want to give a lot of it away, but he would always be ribbing people in matches, during matches. Like some guys that are just like new and don't know how to work matches properly. I have seen Owen run him off the ropes and be like, they would duck an elbow, duck a clothesline. He'll leap him. He'll drop down. He would just keep doing that till they were so gassed they couldn't move. They don't even pick up on what he's doing. There was always some way for him to rib someone. Always. Yeah.
Would he try and gas you?
Some of the guys. I didn't mind running like that in the ring. I actually liked sprinting. I think I would have run as much as he wanted me to. I liked working my wind when I was out there. But some of the guys that are you're really huge. You run the ropes so many times. It gasses you no matter what size you are. But when you keep doing it when you're a 350-pound guy, it'll gas you. Yeah.
Now another guy that's very polarizing. Some of the guys we've done interviews with, they like him a lot. Some of them can't stand him. Triple H. What are your thoughts on Triple H?
Hunter's all right. A lot of guys, used to say things about him because they thought he was just, playing the card, kissing up to people and stuff like that. But I will say this about Hunter. You can't take away from the fact he's good on the microphone and he's good in the ring. And he's good size. So, did he kiss some people's butts to get to where he is? Maybe. What did he have to? I don't really think so. I think some of the guys got mad because I think some guys felt that their positions were jeopardized because he was helping to keep them down a little bit. I think that's kind of what you're insinuating.
That's what some guys have said. On the
interviews. Is it possible? Sure. Would he be the only one? No. If there were other guys that were in the top spots doing that, maybe it did go on. But I don't think he needed to do some of the things he did because I think he was big enough, good enough in the mic, and had enough psychology in the ring to pull it off regardless. Yeah. Because he is pretty good in the ring. I'll give him that.
Yeah. The Rock, you wrestled with him quite a bit early on. How did he change with success? Did he change at all? Was he still good to work with, easygoing?
I think he changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't want to speak, in a negative manner, but I think he changed some.
Yeah. I guess, and not just him, but overall, would you say when you become that successful, I guess there's a little bit of paranoia about guys taking your spot, not specifically him, but just top guys in general?
I think it's there to a certain degree, but when you were at that point in time, when you're Rock and Austin, when you've developed that, you've raised the bar. Here's top match, here's opening match. You guys have the skills on the mic where you have put the bar up here now above everybody else. I don't even know at that point in time if it would have even crossed their minds besides the two of them about the top spot. Austin and Rock Austin. They were so far above everyone at that point that I can't see anything even slipping into their mind about being worried about a position. I can't, because they were really banging up the wrestling world.
Yeah. Did you ever think about getting into movies, like kickboxing movies or like martial arts movies? Or
I have. I mean, I went out to LA when I was done wrestling, and I had some stuff lined up out there. But then again, like that was after I first finished wrestling, and my neck was bothering me so much that I realized I couldn't even. There was no way I could have stood on a set for 10 hours. My head hurt all day.
Yeah.
Well, you know, headaches, 4 days a week, or well, not 4 days a week. I'd say, without exaggerating, I had migraines 10 to 12 days a month. So, with that in mind, I can't stand on set for 10 hours. Yeah. My neck would flare up just sitting around sometimes, and just my head would just start pounding. So, and once I realized that, I'm like, I'm going back home. Well, then I flew home, got my neck worked on. Well, then it took, like I told you, 11 months till I got back to normal. Well, then, time had flown by, and I just didn't feel like going back to LA, and I was dating somebody else at home, and just, a lot of different circumstances. So I just never went back and pursued it. But it certainly did cross my mind. That's what I went out there for. And like I said, I actually had a fair amount of things lined up. If I wouldn't have had the neck problems, I probably would have stayed and done some more.
Wow. Whose idea was it to start wearing the cheese head?
I don't know if it was one of the writers, Al's, or mine. I honestly don't remember. I just know at the time when they were doing that gimmick, I mean, now Al has a pretty good sense of humor to begin with. So when he's using the gimmick head, trying to think of different, names to put with it. So you got head count, head cheese, and so on and so on. But it was comical, and it was like so unlike me. There's someone like me or my character to wear that hat. And the people did pop on it. It was funny, and it did look ridiculous on me. But same with the first night when they did head count and put like that Count Dracula thing on me and all that stuff. Yeah. It was funny. And what made it interesting was like the people, like they'd show us on the screen, the people would pop right away because they wanted to just wait and see what stupid thing Al was going to have me do this week. Yeah, that's what was getting it over. The matches as a tag team were just okay. The vignettes were great and the matches were okay. With Brian, our vignettes were great and our matches were great, and then he screwed up. That's kind of what happened there, I think. But for 4 months and stuff, Al and I did seem to be pretty comical.
Yeah. Did you like it?
I liked it. Yeah. It was funny. It was like, at least you got a decent spot when you're constantly doing vignettes like that. People pop on them. If the people pop on them, the office is good to go with it because you're getting a good response. Yeah. So you're going to keep flowing with them until it dries up. Yeah. So, it was good for a while.
Why do you think that you and Al just didn't have like the right chemistry in the ring together? Or?
I mean, we both know how to work. Yeah. It just, for some reason, some of our matches just didn't click. Yeah. I can't say, not all of them. If we tagged together, I don't know the exact frame, 4 months, 5 months, I'd say half the matches were really good and the other half were just okay. The vignettes were all really good, but only half the matches seemed to be. And I think that's what ended up being the downfall. It just kind of didn't click. Yeah. Some of the nights just flowed. And then other nights would be like, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. It just didn't work well tonight.
Yeah. Did you like doing the goofy stuff, or do you like being more straight-laced, more yourself?
I didn't mind the goofy stuff. It was funny. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, when you're doing it and the people are popping on it, and it is funny, it makes you want to do it more.
Yeah. Yeah. Memories of your run in the hardcore division?
I like doing the hardcore stuff because I like being able to showcase some of the things I was better at. Like I like doing my sticks. I like doing my kendo stick routines, doing nunchucks, or just using weapons in general. So I like that because no matter what we picked up, I seem to be able to just, flow with it. And I tried to develop new ways to use things. Like, so every time I had a hardcore match, I tried to use things in different ways so people would stay into it. And I felt like it went well for a while. I mean, even working with a lot of the guys that didn't do that many hardcore matches, it was fun. I mean, I worked with just about everybody in there one time or another, doing a hardcore match. Now, using my sticks and a lot of the weapons were my forte, but when you're using some of those gimmicks, it's always easier to get a pop from the people with some things. Sure. Like when you're hitting somebody with a garbage can or a lid, and then it cracks like that, it's easy to get a pop. I give myself some credit that I could do all the weapons, so I got a pop with those. But my point is, like, some of the guys that are doing regular matches, you got to have good psychology to get that same pop just cracking somebody with a garbage can. That's why I tried to really make some interesting spots and use weapons all different ways. Yeah. So it wouldn't just look like a cheap, easy pop. I keep trying to come up with new inventions.
Yeah. You had a series of matches with Shane McMahon. What do you remember about your run with Shane?
I thought that was actually a good run. We actually had a good match at SummerSlam that day.
Yeah.
Now Matt and Albert and Test interfered in that, but I actually thought the match was decent. Shane's pretty athletic too, so we had some good spots in there. People certainly popped when he came off the Titantron. That crazy bastard took it backwards.
Yeah.
I came down a little ways, shimmied down, then jumped. The worst thing is you're so sweaty up there, and there's nothing below you. You got to jump out, so you're worried about slipping off and falling down. But that was a pretty good drop.
Yeah, it was a great drop.
And when he took it backward, I'm like, that crazy bastard's going backwards. But
yeah, people
popped on it. It was fun, And then when I came down and worked him a little bit, then jumped off and dropped the elbow on him. When the people are coming, there's no stopping now. It's now you got it. You're going to keep going, and that makes it fun, though.
Yeah. Are you surprised that even now, like, it's still one of the most remembered SummerSlam matches? People still talk about that drop in that match.
They do, it's funny because one of my friends was over the other night and he brought it up on YouTube, and I don't know, last year 180,000 people looked at it or something like that. So it is. They do still talk about it. I don't know the exact height. Some people say 20 feet, some people say 30. But going up there, Shane, when he took that backward, give or take 10 feet, my guess would be 40, 45 feet.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good drop.
Yeah.
There's no way it was only 20 feet because when I came down, I think I was still at 20 or 25 when I jumped.
Yeah.
On it with an elbow. Maybe 25. I don't know exactly. Well, if I jumped at 25, he had to be 45 because I shimmied down not quite halfway to turn and jump.
Yeah. You're not afraid of heights or anything like that?
I know. I'd rather have my feet on the ground. One thing bothers me is height. I like being able to hold on to something.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't. Like I said, the biggest problem was being that sweaty. It was hard to hold. Yeah, I feel like I was slipping off. I don't care for heights too much, but
yeah,
part of the show.
Yeah. Did you feel any extra pressure working with them? It's the boss's son, and then on the other hand, it's a big push because you're in there with the McMahon.
I felt like it was a push. And I felt like if I pulled that off, I was going to keep using my momentum because my popularity was getting better and better through the hardcore stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think because when I look back on it, when I was in my regular matches, I'd say 3/4 of them were really good and 1/4 of them were just okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was me having a neck problem or me just doing enough to get by because my head hurt, whatever the reasons, and I want to make an excuse, whatever the reasons. And then I felt when I did the hardcore stuff, I felt like all the matches were pretty good because I got to really just showcase some of the stuff I've been doing most of my life.
Yeah.
So I like that, but I miss it sometimes.
Yeah. So did you feel any pressure working with them or extra pressure, I guess?
Well, when I felt like it was a push, I felt like, okay, I'm going to keep stepping it up and keep this momentum going. So whenever I do finish up with this hardcore, I can carry this momentum on. So I looked at it like a pretty good opportunity to keep this going. And I don't know. And then we had I thought the match was pretty good.
Yeah.
So it helped. And then just helped carry things along. I can't remember how long I did the hardcore stuff after that match though. But I know everything runs its course. So I'd done the hardcore in there. It might have been 10 or 11 months.
Yeah.
It's a long time to do that. It's a long time to get hit over the head with your own sticks each night too.
Yeah.
But once that dried up, then I moved on to the tag match.
I think you did. Didn't you do something like a Blackman bunkhouse brawl or something on Raw the next night or something with Test and all them getting involved?
I don't
think
remember.
There was some kind of a weird angle or something during the Sheen series. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Vince Russo and Ed Farrar? Did you work hand in hand with them a lot, or?
Yeah, I worked with both of them. I thought Vince had a good mind for the business. I think if they just focus on the business, I don't know. Some of the guys used to say, "Oh, they always just write good things for their favorites." I wasn't around enough to know who their favorites were.
Yeah,
and didn't really care. But I thought that they had a decent mind for the business. For never have worked.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
how did things change when they left?
Well, the show goes on.
Yeah,
they leave, then you find the next best person you can find and put them in that spot and keep the thing going. Everybody step up their performance and just keep on going. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
You can't be like, oh, what are we going to do now? It's just you move on.
Yeah.
I think it was a stab in the back a little bit, but that's life. He's looking out for himself and his family or whatever. So that's what you do.
Yeah. Are you surprised, with all the success that they had when you were there, that things, flopped as bad as they did in WCW with those guys?
Not really. I mean, like, they have a good mind for the business, writing some matches and things like that, but you have to have a lot of other things in place. The fact that they went under, you can't have guys coming in there to help say what they want to do on the show and things like that. When you're in command, you command. You don't have a whole bunch of Indians come in and help be chief. You got one chief and he designates. When you have that many people coming in saying, oh, I don't want to do this tonight, I'll do this, I'll do that, it's just going to cause mayhem, and sooner or later it's going to wreak havoc. It's going to flow downhill, and it just looks awful, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. Did you ever want to get into like booking or like road agent kind of a thing?
I've thought about it. I mean, I find it interesting. I mean, I have tons and tons of stuff in my head on different matches and spots, and I used to just, write tons of things down that I thought would look good on the tube. So, I mean, I thought about it. It's funny, even when I watched WWF, I had things written down for other guys to do. If I ever worked with them, I thought, no, this would be a good new move for him to use. This would be good for this guy to use. But I mean, I'm not on the road or whatever, so I don't bring them up, but I certainly thought about it.
Yeah. What do you remember of matches with Raven? You wrestled Raven quite a bit in the hardcore division.
That was all right.
Yeah.
I mean, he worked hard in the hardcore matches as well. I mean, none of those guys are afraid to take anything. They all take hard shots for that stuff. So, I mean, there's a good group of guys that like to do those too.
Yeah. When you teamed up with Brian Christopher, did you travel with him at all? Or?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Well, if we had appearances, we traveled together.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to go to appearances, and then we'd be on the road doing appearances for a couple of days before we get to the arena. So we'd be traveling those days. But if we actually didn't have anything like that lined up, I would just travel with Bob or about Holly, and he would travel with one of his friends or whatever. So
some guys said he was pretty wild on the road.
Brian,
did you ever experience
he's
that?
a party animal.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So you started talking about that before. When he got fired, at that point, I guess it kind of left you in limbo a bit, huh? Because they didn't know what to do with you at that time, right?
They left me in limbo because our tag matches were going really well. Like I said, the matches were great, and the vignettes backstage and stuff were all great. And sometimes they filled attrition with us. So the whole scenario was pretty funny, and everything was going well. I'm like, actually, at that point in time, I think it could have been any better. Our matches were always good together, just clicked. You know? And when that happened, okay, I think they kind of anticipated us being together for like the next year as a tag team. And the way it was going, there was no reason not to think that, because for 4 months, everything was going well. So when that happened, everybody's like, well, I mean, I don't think I was in the back of anybody's mind to do anything different for an angle, because this was going well. When it's working, you don't fix it. So when that happened, and then my neck problems, it's like, we'll go home till we figure something out for you. Well, when you're at home and an angle's dried up and they're trying to figure out a new one for you, I mean, I've seen guys sit home for 3 years.
Yeah.
And well, after a few months went by, and then JR's like, well, you know what, Steve? Well, now you have 9 months left. Go get your neck fixed. If it gets better, call us. We'll start you over, put you back on the road again. Well, before you know it, I had problems getting to Canada, so I had to go get a minister's permit, it's called, so you can get back and forth into the country without being held up at customs all the time. Yeah. So it took 3 months to get that one. Now I got 6 months left. Well, my point is, it went so fast that with 6 months left, they're like, go, just stay home. If you get your neck fixed, we'll talk again, put you back on the road for a few years. And that's kind of how it was, just kind of ran out like that.
Did you find when you went on the road, especially with your gimmick, people knew your karate background and stuff, if you were maybe in a restaurant or a bar and you had the loudmouth local guy that would try and challenge you or get in your face, did you find that? Did that happen at all?
When I was younger and going to matches from Calgary, it happened up there sometimes. WWF had happened, it's like, people don't realize that some people can just really push your buttons. Yeah. And they're like, we need to walk away, you're going to get sued. Well, that's great. But I saw Shamrock get sued and lost because some guy wouldn't stop hounding his wife all night. I saw Bulldog get sued because some guy kept hounding his wife.
I remember that.
Right. And, these things happen. And then you go in front of a court and they're like, oh, well, you're a big guy and you're a wrestler. Well, this guy's an asshole. Yeah. When you walk away 3 times, it's one thing. When you turn your back 10 times, it's another. It's like, you just get to the point where, okay, I've had it now. I'm a man. Stop asking me to be a man. This guy's a jerk and he's going to get cracked. But I mean, like, Bulldog went through hell. I mean, this guy aggravated his wife for an hour. And he came up and started mouthing off to Dave. He tried to tackle Bulldog. Bulldog hooked him in a guillotine choke, so to speak, picked the guy's feet off the mat to choke him out, and just dropped him. Well, he got sued in court, and all this went on. He spent a fortune in court to get out of it. He actually didn't lose this case, but he spent $200,000 in court.
Yeah.
Shamrock, guy was hounding him, his wife, irritating Ken nonstop. Point is, Ken got sued. He paid the guy $50,000 a year for 5 years, I think. And the guy was a total jerk, started the whole thing, wouldn't leave him alone. Ken hit him one time. The guy fell and hit his head. Probably, if somebody's going to court, all of a sudden they become an actor too.
Of course.
So, he ended up paying, and that guy started the whole thing. It's just, you see it a lot. And, people need to take into consideration, these people have a goal in mind. If they keep hounding you, I think they want to get hit because they want to try to sue because they're such a bum or a loser. They can't make any money any other way. Yeah. So if you're going to hit them, make it worth your while.
Yeah. Did you find that with yourself? Did you have any problems when you were on the road?
Yeah. But this might sound ridiculous, but I know one thing, if you just palm slap them, it's a lot less injury, so to speak, in court than if you close fist them. Sweep them, shoot on them, take them down, choke them out, palm slap them. It's just a lot less likely if you punch somebody in the face that you're going to get sued for a whole lot of money. It's ridiculous, but you actually have to cover your butt that way nowadays.
Yeah. Wow. What are your memories of matches with Kurt Angle?
Kurt, Kurt's always had great work ethic. He's a natural. Came in, he's athletic. Kurt was good off the bat. He was decent on the mic as soon as he came in, and he was great on the mic in a few months. I think he's one of the best people on the microphone ever at this point. Yeah. And his wrestling ability, his wrestling was always good. He actually picked up his psychology quick and the mic stuff quick, so he was good. Yeah.
Now, you talked a lot about your neck and the bone chips back there. Was it one match? Was it an accumulation? Was it your career? What do you think was it that actually?
I think it's just accumulation. Yeah. Years of playing sports and football, and years of wrestling, years of lifting. I did these bone spurs in there, almost like pencil points, digging in the nerves when I would land and things like that in the back and different sides of my head. Wow. So I think it's just everything together.
Yeah. How did you find out? Because I guess you said you were having headaches. Did you just think originally at first, it's just headaches, or did you know something was wrong?
I figured I had something wrong like that. I kinked my neck one day, and I just kept going to the gym. Every time I lift, it would make it worse. And it was irritating my right eye. My right eyelid would keep twitching. I couldn't even keep it open all the way because the nerve was bothering me in my neck. Well, after 2 weeks that I went to the doctor, I'm like, every time I lift, my eye's going like this, and the nerve's bothering my eyelid. Yeah. So he said, you got something swollen back there. It's putting pressure on the nerve. You need to stop working out. Well, I'd take 2 days off from lifting. I'd feel okay, go to the gym, lift. Well, then I'd go through that again. Point is, I never let it heal properly, turn it into a chronic problem. And then, the wrestling was making it worse and worse. Yeah. Every time I land on it. So if I'd have 2 days off at home, it would feel better. I'd go on the road, I'd lift, wrestle, and it would just keep setting me back. Well, it just over the years, it got worse and worse and worse. And I ended up turning, I got bone spurs in there and then a pinched nerve over there and stuff like that. So just years of pounding.
How is it today? Does it feel okay, or do you still get headaches?
I still get headaches, but if I got 10 or 12 of them a month back then, I probably get one a month now. Yeah. I mean, really bad headaches. I have days when my neck irritates me and I feel tired, look tired and stuff, and I have a headache. But what I call a headache is tolerable and a migraine are two different things.
Right. Is it still hard to put in all that time in the gym, or is your neck recovered enough where you can get your workouts in and stuff?
I know the line I can't cross. Oh, okay. Like on the bench press, I use a certain weight and go. I know if I cross that line, it'll hurt. If I do shoulder presses, I know the line I won't cross because it'll hurt. If I'm deadlifting, I just know the certain weight that I can't go over or what I'll go through. Yeah. So I've learned it over the years. So I work out. I train hard, but I just know what I can't cross. Yeah.
Do you think if you were younger, or when you were younger and UFC and MMA kind of took off, do you think you would have went in that direction instead?
Yes, I would have loved to. Yeah. And even people always think my age is a factor at this point, but if I wouldn't have had these injuries and just feel crappy, a lot of the time, I would have still done it, when I finished up with WWF. So I still felt like I had the same speed, same strength, things like that when I was younger. But yes, in my 20s, I wish that would have been popular like it is now. Yeah. I mean, it kind of took off in the early 90s, and then I was still getting my health back, and then I got in WWF. But the last few years, UFC has taken off. I actually thought it might put a dent in the WWF business, but I don't think it has. It's almost like it's like 50% of the people watch both, and then you have a certain part of people that just watch one, a certain part watching the other. So I don't really think it's put a deterrent on any of it.
Yeah. It seems like there's a rise, not really in the WWF or WWE, but like on the independents, TNA, where guys are working more stiff with each other. The younger guys, there's more like a stronger style. Guys are getting hurt more. What are your thoughts on the more stiff style? It seems like everybody wants to kind of imitate UFC in a way.
Well, I think they're trying to imitate some of that. Although the guys, if you're not good at it, then don't do it. If you don't throw good kicks, don't throw them. If you don't have good jiu-jitsu, don't do it. If some guys try to put on an arm bar and triangle, the guys that are skilled at it, if your technique's not good, don't do it, or go get trained in it. Now, Undertaker's been doing some submission holds, and I knew he had been taught that stuff before, so he's been getting schooled on that. And I've watched some of the submissions he's been doing, and and his technique's pretty good on him. He knows what he's doing with them. But some of the guys trying to incorporate it, like I've always told people, if you're not good at it, don't do it out there.
Yeah,
because it'll look like shits.
Yeah,
but he's pulling it off. But I think they're trying to just go back old school, trying to get more of the wrestling and just real, make real fighting, just trying to incorporate a lot more of that stuff in there, even a lot more of the amateur wrestling as well. Yeah, because a lot of the guys in there are good amateur wrestlers. So
yeah. You went down to HWA for a little while towards the end of your WWF career.
That was after the thing with Brian and I dried up.
Yeah. Was it? Did you like it down there, or was it kind of hard to go from the big show to?
Didn't like it there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I didn't like it there for a few reasons. It's hard going from the big show back to the little show, especially for a reason like that where your partner messed up, but then just being away from home to go there to work for 10 to 14 days at a time, and they want you to stay longer so you can work with some of the younger guys. I don't mind doing that and helping them along, but just to be away from home to work in front of 300 people, and stuff like that, to try to keep your skills a little sharp. I'm like, I have a ring at home. I don't need to be down there. If you tell me I'm going on the road, I'll get in the ring 2 or 3 hours a day. If you don't believe me, I'll videotape it and send it to you. If I tell you I'm going to do it, I'll do it. I mean, I just, it's tired. I said, look, I got a life. I got a, girlfriend at home. I got my house in Florida. I don't want to live here in this area. Yeah. I mean, all I do is go in the gym in the morning and practice wrestle, and then go wrestle at night for a few hundred people. It wasn't fun. It can't be fun for any of the guys. If you're new and you're young, you have to start out somewhere. You have to perform in front of small crowds and get used to it. But to tell me I have to stay there, like even Benoit told him the same thing. He's going home. Some of the other guys that were, veterans told him they're going home. It's like I said, I mean, I can go home and get in my ring for a week if you tell me I'm going back on the road soon. I don't need to go through this to polish up. I mean, I've had 2,500, 3,000 matches at this point. I'm going home. Yeah, yeah. When WCW was around, did you ever talk to them about working for them at all, or? Nope. I mean, some of the guys that I knew down there told me that I could have, but the way my contract was with WWF, I re-signed before my first one expired. So there was no reason for me to negotiate with them. At that time, some of the guys told me I actually could have gotten more money down there. But even now, it's like Vince took me back after 6 years of being sick. I'm usually pretty loyal if you give me the chance. If you screw me, I have no problem, telling you to screw off, and go somewhere else. But it would have been hard to get me to go down there anyway, because I did a few years with them, and I felt like, you gave me a chance, you took me back, I'm going to stay here. So it would have been hard to get me to go at that point anyway. Yeah. What were your thoughts on Les Thatcher down in HWA? This is a nice guy. Yeah. Yeah. Was there anybody down there that you remember working with, like the younger guys that you thought would make it, that didn't make it, or vice versa, somebody you thought just didn't have it and wound up becoming real successful? Well, I think, I'm trying to remember who all was down there. I think Batista was down there at that point. Okay. Before he came back into Titan. I don't know how, he wasn't down there real long like some of the guys, but nevertheless, I don't care who you are. You need to perform in front of some small crowds until you work your way up. Yeah. But he was down there. I always thought he had a chance. He moved. I mean, I knew he had to work on some of the moves in psychology a bit, but he definitely has the look. I mean, he has the height, the size. He's got decent charisma. So, I mean, you knew he had a pretty good shot. I can't remember who some of the other guys were, because 6 years ago back there, and I wasn't down there long. Yeah. And some of the other guys were sent down there too, who, if they don't have an angle for you, they just want you to work with the young guys and keep yourself polished, so to speak. Haku was down there. Oh, that's right. One in Demolition was down there. Who else was there? The guys come and go. If guys got injured, like if all the guys that had neck operations, most of them were sent down there for 2 weeks before they put them back on the road.
Yeah.
So D'Lo was down there. He was there for a while.
Yeah. You've said quite a bit, that you've been tight with Ken, Shamrock. Do you think when he did the Ultimate Fighter and they did the thing with him and Tito, do you think they made him look bad? Do you think it wasn't worth it in the end as far as, none of his guys won matches or anything like that?
I don't know what happened to Ken over the years. But, back in the other younger days, his Ultimate Fighting style was totally different than it is now. Like my thing with Ken is he was always a good wrestler, and he always would ground and pound people or get them on the ground and then submit them. And then those last few fights, it's almost like he tried to turn into a standing fighter all of a sudden. I could never figure that out. I don't think he had the same size, the same speed, strength, anything. I don't think it was a good showing. I don't think he can think it's a good showing. No matter what, the guy's got a set of balls. He'll step in the ring with anybody.
Sure.
But it doesn't change the fact that physically speaking, I know he had elbow problems. I know he had knee problems, which means he couldn't train properly, which means his strength and size weren't back to normal. I'm not trying to make excuses for him.
Sure.
But I don't think he should have taken some of those fights. And, and I'm not, and Tito's the same way. He'll step in there with anybody too. Although I don't think Tito's game's that great. That's just my opinion. I think he's a decent fighter, but I don't think he's great. And as fast as he went through Ken, I just think Ken just should have stayed home if he had those problems with his knee and elbow and all that stuff, and just kept doing putting on the shows and stuff and teaching, because he got it handed to him in those fights. Yeah.
Do you think he should? Because they're talking about this year, promoting him versus Frank Shamrock. Do you think he should take that?
I don't, just because I know his physical stature isn't that great right now. I mean, he has injuries, and he shouldn't. And when you're injured, you can't train right.
Yeah.
And no, I personally don't think he should. But
have you ever trained with him as a sparring partner or anything when he was getting ready for fights?
We talked a few times I was going to go out, and then I didn't. I ended up just being tied up here at home. I sent one of my fighters out there to train with his fighters for a while last year, just to give some other guys to roll with and spar with, and give those guys somebody out there to move with, because my guy's like lightning. The one guy sent with like lightning with his hands and feet.
Wow.
And I wanted him to get his jiu-jitsu better rolling with some of those guys on his team, but I never went out there with him personally. No.
Was it tough when Jim Ross told you to set your contract? Was it tough to go from having a real good steady income to just all of a sudden you don't have a contract anymore? What did you do to make ends meet? Did you do the MMA training or train guys? Or
you mean when I was done wrestling?
Yeah.
I mean I personal train people during the day.
Oh, okay.
I personal train people in the gym from 8:30 in the morning till like 4 in the afternoon.
Oh wow.
I do that Monday through Friday, and my MMA school is 5 in the afternoon, or 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I do that Monday through Thursday. So I mean I do a lot of that stuff. The first 2 years out of wrestling, I pretty much pissed around.
Yeah.
I did. I should have just done more, other wrestling. I should have done some other things, but I don't know. I just tired of being on the road. I just wanted to do whatever. I kind of just hung out at the beach, bopped back and forth to Florida, Atlantic City, just kind of did whatever I wanted the first 2 years. But that was a long time of screwing around. So it was time to get back to normal schedule.
I think you told me when I had you on my radio show a couple of years ago, you were training a little bit at the New Japan dojo with Ken. Did you?
Oh, I was out in LA for 4 months. I met Ken over there a few times. We were just on the mats. But again, my neck was so bad out there. It's like when I was rolling, I'd be rolling, we'd be going half speed. We would just work on passing guards, some side mount riding people.
Yeah.
I wasn't, really going all out throwing people, and same with them with me because of my neck and stuff. So it was just, something to do for a while. So I meet him over there, and, they were getting workouts in, and he trained with one of the other guys. That New Japan dojo, they did lots of submission, stuff in there. It wasn't just TV wrestling. It was also jiu-jitsu and stuff. They had Ishmael was one of the instructors over there for the jiu-jitsu, so he was pretty good at that. And so we went over there to train sometimes.
Oh, wow. We were talking before the interview, and you said you have a self-defense school in Harrisburg?
Yeah.
If you want to talk a little bit about that.
It's an MMA school. We cover boxing, wrestling, karate, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. We do the whole works in there. I have a lot of guys. I have about 15 guys that actually compete, which is a lot from one place. I have a lot of other guys that do it just to learn. But I mean, I don't care if any of them compete, to tell you the truth, but the fact that a lot of them do, it certainly makes it more interesting because every few weeks we got fights to go to.
Yeah.
Like next weekend, I have 6 guys fighting in one night.
Wow.
So it makes it fun. Like 2 weeks ago, I had 3 guys. 2 weeks before that, 2 other guys. Kind of just rotate them. But I have a few guys that have exceptional talent. So they have a pretty good chance to break into UFC someday, I think. Yep, my fight school, it's in right downtown near downtown Harrisburg. It's MMA, Harrisburg-MMA, if you're looking on the website. So, people get confused. They put in Harrisburg MMA. That was an old site some jabroni started. And then if you click on there, he has pictures of some of us who came into my school one time. So it kind of makes it look like mine, but you have to do Harrisburg-MMA. Then they can bring up the site that most of my guys are on.
Okay, cool. And like if somebody's watching and they want to come train with you, how advanced do they have to be to train with you?
You don't have to be advanced. I mean, you can come in. I mean, I have guys at so many different levels that if new people come in, I'll make sure they're paired up with guys at the same caliber as them. Now, doing the stand-up drills, like if I'm doing boxing drills, you'll never feel out of place. You can start throwing hands, and you might not be crisp, but you'll get faster and faster with your hands and throwing your feet and your elbows and knees and all that stuff. Jiu-jitsu skills and amateur wrestling skills, I got to pair you up with somebody close to where you're beginning because you'll be completely lost.
Yeah. What happened to the ground and pound close?
Long story short, that guy with a closed business pissed Ken off. Ken said he was done, and that was the end of it.
Wow.
Pretty much right there.
Yeah. Like I was telling you before the interview, it's good stuff. People still ask me where I got those shirts. So.
Yeah. Well, those guys that did the shirts, I knew them from Atlantic City.
Yeah.
So I said, well, okay, I'll help you guys out, try to get the thing started. And I don't know exactly what happened between them and Ken. I know Ken got all pissed off about something that they said to him on the phone, and before I knew it, he goes, I've had it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't care anyway.
Yeah.
I just figured I'm doing it to help a couple of my friends. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I'm not going to sleep over it.
Yeah.
So that was the end of it.
How did you wind up back on Brawl for the 15-year anniversary show?
They just gave me a buzz. So, asked, hey, you want to come back on the anniversary show? And I said, sure. I mean, I felt like I was always in good shape because 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, rolling with the guys and the mats, hitting bags, hitting mitts, and then I train people and I'm in the gym all day. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go back. I still work out all the time.
Well, I think that was the biggest surprise because you see a lot of the guys that would come out and they're not in the shape they used to be, in their prime, and here you come walking out looking just as good as you did before,
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm neurotic about things like that. If I know, I only had a week notice for that.
Wow.
But if I know I'm doing something like that, for me, there's no such thing as not being ready. I mean, I would have trained 3 times a day if I felt I was out of shape. I mean, I train all the time. Like I said, wrestling, from 5 to 7, and then the guys do rolling on their own. But I mean, I'm on the mats with the guys doing stuff from 5 to 7, bags, mitts, and then an hour of actual jiu-jitsu rolling every night. Keeps you pretty lean. So, and then along with the lifting and stuff. So I was kind of anxious to get back out there,
Yeah.
I felt like I was in decent shape.
Were you surprised at the reaction you got from the fans? Because they were pretty surprised to see you.
Yeah, I was happy with that too. I mean, when you still get a pop from the people, it's like, yeah, you know what, that was fun being in there back then. And obviously the people, liked what you were doing, or they wouldn't give you another pop, 5 years later. Yeah. So I was happy with that. Even some of the other guys, I mean, they got a pretty good pop going out there too. But I was pleased. Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about interviews. I just did one with Bill Irwin a couple of weeks ago, the Goon, because he was out there for that. Yeah. Yeah. Is the door open for you to come back or?
Only if I can tell them with absolute certainty I have no neck problems.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was there, I discussed a few things with them, and I mean, I could tell them I don't have headaches every day, but if I'm bumping every day, am I going to get them more than once a month? Maybe. I mean, it's like I said, it's not just an easy headache where you go out there and wrestle. I mean, my head used to hurt so bad that if I got forearmed or slammed, I felt like my head was exploding. But if people have migraines, you're going to throw up, lay down, your head hurts for 12 hours. It's just pretty hard to wrestle like that. I mean, I sucked it up and did many times, but they knew what I went through. They could see it in my eyes. You could see when I was in pain because my head was just pounding. But if I could tell that JR, if I went up and said, hey, my headaches are gone, I'm good to go. I still thought there was a chance to come back in, knowing I only get them once or twice a month. But, they want a clean slate.
Wow. Have you thought about doing TNA since their schedule's a lot lighter?
I have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, going down there and knowing you only have to perform once, even if my neck and stuff flared up once for the next day or two, and then you don't have to do TV again until the next week.
Yeah.
That certainly seemed pretty appealing. Now I know, like, Jarrett's in charge down there, and he was always tight with like Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, Steiners, and all those guys. Now those guys are all good workers anyway, so it's not like he's just bringing in favors for the hell of it. Those guys are all built well and can work anyway.
Yeah.
But so I don't know how easy it would be to get in there. I don't know how many spots they actually have open because they only do the shows like once a week. It's not like WWF who does 2 or 3 different shows.
Yeah.
So.
Did you get any heat from at the office or maybe any of your colleagues when you did those couple of shows like Larry King and Nancy Grace? Anybody say, hey?
No, most of the guys were happy with what I was saying out there.
Yeah.
It's like my whole thing is those things are prevalent in sports. Steroids are prevalent, painkillers are prevalent. So, as an adult, you have to know what boundaries not to cross. Like I said to Miro on that one show, nobody's filling a platter with all this stuff and shoving it down your throat. These guys are adults; they make adult choices. Well, if you're injured, stop taking 20 Percocets a day and take 2 of them. If your liver's giving you problems and you're taking all these roids, well, stop taking them for 2 months and then cut back on them. It's not like somebody sits around and monitors. Now, like I said there too, could this drug testing be more stringent? Of course it could. But can it be more stringent in baseball, football, everything else? Of course it can. It's the same, and no owner of an organization making that much money is going to come out and just drug test everyone to the degree where he's suspending a bunch of the guys. Now, if he gets pressure on him from the outside, like Congress or something, well, of course he'll abide by it, I'm sure, and do what he has to, just like baseball and football.
Yeah.
But it's the same in every sport. So them trying to single out, wrestling or say, well, Benoit did this because of these, come on, we don't know how many. I haven't seen any serial killers get arrested before for taking steroids, so let's not start now.
Yeah. Do you still have a passion for the business?
When I'm in the ring, it feels good. Like when I think about traveling and being on the road and being away from home, it's like, not interested. But when you get in the ring and the people start getting into it and you're doing a match, it's like, man, it feels good to be in here again. Because like when you're in the ring a lot, it's like when you step in the ring, it just feels good when you start getting a pop from the people.
Yeah. Did you, you're well-spoken. You have a lot of great stories. Did you ever think about writing a book?
I have. I actually started one. I'm the only thing, like my book, I won't write a book where I blast people and I say this guy does these drugs and this guy is a lump of shit. I'm not going to do that. If I write a book, I'm going to tell people some of the craziest stories they ever heard in the world. And honest to God, I could tell you stories from every day being on the road for years in Canada and Japan, stuff that people just wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Things about me getting started, maybe illness in Africa, just some of the other things the guys do. People want to see something, read something. They like to watch entertainment. They want to read something that's entertaining. And me sitting there just blasting people like some of the guys do, I just don't think is the way to go.
Yeah.
I don't need to spend chapters putting some of the guys down, or this guy kissed somebody's ass, I'm going to blast him for 20 pages. That's just not me.
Yeah.
But I certainly have thought about it. Like I said, I actually started writing one about a year ago. After I did the news programs, I got a couple calls from some people that work for publishing companies. They're like, do you want to write a book? I said, sure. And they're like, well, you want to do a tell-all book? I'm like, well, what do you mean tell all? Well, they want you to tell all on the guys who did what. Well, I'll never do it.
Yeah.
Ever. I don't care how much money from me. I'm never going to go in there and see these guys did these drugs. I've seen it. I won't ever do it. So, my book is going to be something interesting, comical, crazy, but it certainly won't be snitching on people ever.
Yeah. In wrapping up, a lot of your fans are watching right now, and some of them haven't seen you in a while. Do you have a message or anything you want to say to your fans? Yeah,
but I appreciate all the support you guys gave to me and all the other wrestlers when I was in there. It's a rough business. It's rough entertainment. It takes a group of hardcore people to be fans in that type of business because it is different. But if you're still watching it, great. Those guys are sacrificing their bodies. They sacrifice being at home. They do a lot to entertain you people. So, keep watching them.
TitleMatchNetwork.com